Hello, Mixed.
Yo, what's up? I'm really sorry if it's been noisy. I just got out of work and so I'm on the way home.
Yeah, no, what happened, by the way?
Long story short, essentially, I work at like a tech store, right?
Yeah.
And Thursday night, some guys tried stealing some stuff, right? So they took some stuff like at night. The security guards got away, and then today there was a bunch of shady guys that came to the store. So I talked to the security guards, and then some guys tried stealing stuff again. So I had to stay over like with my boss and yeah, so I had to just like stay there with the police, not the police, but like the security guards, and like give information and go through the security footage and all that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so sorry about that, my guy.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so you accused me of saying some real dumb shit undefined, so I guess we can get into that.
For real, bro, you were saying some. I don't know if it's you because I'm hearing all this information from Doge, like Dogecast, right?
Yeah.
But the things that he said that you said sounded like some real dumb shit about Vänsterpartiet, my guy.
Were we gonna discuss Vänsterpartiet, or were we gonna discuss? Because I briefly
no,
touched on Vänsterpartiet.
I get what you mean. So it's like the impression I got from Doge was that you were like a Vänsterpartiet shield.
Okay.
So he basically said to me that it's like, listen, Vänsterpartiet is the best party because they're the only party that wants to deal with the economic questions and problems caused and the problems related with immigration. And I was like, that is such a fucking inflammatory statement,
I mean,
that it's like, what?
Yeah, I by no means just like love what's it called? Vänsterpartiet. I do think that they are the only party that is attacking one of the most critical aspects to integration and also to just general like the social structure of Sweden, which is the quality of our schools and the way that it's managed. So that's the main thing I really ever talked about Vänsterpartiet, and that's something I do believe. I do believe that they're absolutely the best party for education, and that's a super important part when it comes to integration, as has been affirmed by a wide range of academic work on the topic.
Right, but you understand how that's like wildly different from like what Doge said, right?
Yeah, probably.
Right. So my contention was that like he was saying extremely like inflammatory shit, right? And then I was like, damn, bro, if that's really what Roosevelt said, he's saying some dumb shit right now. Bro. Okay. And I stand by that. But if you're like clarifying what you said to Doge as being like radically different, then sure.
I mean, that's basically what I said. That's the main reason why I like Vänsterpartiet, because they want to do the school bit, which is something that's so crucial to me and is almost like near being a one issue thing. But
right.
So beyond that, is there anything you disagree with that like education is important?
I disagree. I disagree with most of your like I guess ideas on how to reform our education system. Definitely.
Okay, so what specifically? Right.
So I'm guessing you believe in like nationalization of the school system, and you believe in like school districting rather than school choice, right?
Yeah, I'm fine with the the communalisering reform of '92, I think it was. I think that's fine. But the implementation of free schooler has been a complete disaster.
Yeah, so I'm completely like against that. So I think that free schooler has had a lot of positive effects, but I'm totally against the. Okay, so for the viewers, are most of your viewers Swedish or are they not Swedish?
We have a portion of Swedish people, but you should explain it anyway.
Okay, so the way that our government is systemed in Sweden is that we have like a quote unquote like unitary parliamentary state unitary representative parliamentary state, right? But the way it works is we have like 3 layers of government. So we have like the federal, quote unquote, federal government, like staten, that we call it, right? The state, which is like our parliament, and then our like executive branch and our like Supreme Court style, whatever the equivalent is here. But then we also have a thing called landsting, which is like our, I guess, like regional government. So there's like 14 regional governments. And then under those landsting, we have kommuner, kommunala, blah, blah, blah. And they're like municipalities, like local governments, right? Yep. The way that the education system works in Sweden is that the education is handled by the local government. So I think that's a huge problem. I think that the education system should be 100% taken over by the state, as in like the federal government, rather than being left up to the like local politics, right? And I think this for like quite a lot of reasons. I think that
but at the same time, you're fine with free schooler, right?
Right, but I think the free schooler should be dictated under the rules and under the common regulations and common certificates under the state, rather than inconsistent hundreds of different local governments.
Okay, so hold on. I can agree with that. There should absolutely be some overarching, nationwide curriculum and funding programs so that proper funding can be directed to because communes have different levels of funding available to them, and it doesn't necessarily correlate with the need for the funding in all the different places. But I just want to go back to something you said before, which is that you believe that the free school reform has been a good thing for Sweden, and I messed up before. The kommunalisering was 89, and the charter school reform was
Was
1992.
it
I mixed them around.
exactly 92? Yeah, or
92.
nine? Yeah, it was 92, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they
Um,
expanded on it, and then like schools began falling behind already in '95.
right.
Um,
And I think that that is and I think this is like from what I believe. This is
mhm,
my personal view.
mhm,
That I think that that is largely a fault of our curriculum rather than a fault of like our actual schools, right? Because you and I can agree those are two different things: the national curriculum and then
mhm.
the actual like school system, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So the way, okay, so I'll present my case and then you can present your case, right?
Yep.
So I believe that the charter schools have actually been giving a really good way to desegregate cities that have already heavily segregated in Sweden through the availability of school choice. Not only that, I also believe that we have a lot of like specialization when it comes to grundskolor, which is like middle schools, but then also gymnasium, which is like high schools. And I think that the fact that people can choose to go to different like schools that specialize in different things is honestly very beneficial towards our system. I think that, for example, one of the reasons why I think that so like segregation is something that I think that we agree on most of the problems. I just think like the policy positions we disagree on, right?
Yeah.
I think I've spoken a little bit too much. I'll let you go.
Yeah. So the statement that you said that free school have contributed to a desegregation of education is
Right.
so far away from from the literature exists on the topic. It's probably like the worst claim we could have made when it comes to the support of free schooler. So there's been a lot of literature on this. I'm going to cite the most recent and, in my opinion, the best example that we have on this, which is a study published by the Swedish government in August of 2020, 6th of August, called En gemensam anlägenhet. And during that study, on page 333, when it discusses the effects of the school reform on when things of issues relating to welfare and equality, they summarize the effects of the free school reforms in the following ways. I'm going to translate word for word by from Swedish here. So the results of the Swedish research about school choice and charter schools can be summarized in the following ways. The reforms have led to an increase in school segregation. The estimated the estimated effect on school results as an effect of the free school reform has been in most of the cases zero or slightly svagt positive, and in some cases negative in the regions that have been affected the most out of school choice. The studies do not find any sort of like what's it called distribution effects, but some find that school choice benefits the students that already have the best opportunities. In that regard, it does the opposite of what it's supposed to do. It does not compensate for differences in opportunities within kids. It actually just exacerbates the ones that already have good opportunities. And then that the charter schools have been financially overcompensated. Um,
Right, which is one of the reasons. Yeah, because that's a national study, right? Do you think that that perhaps has something to do with the fact that we have hundreds of different local governments that have hundreds of different ways of funding different sorts of schools? Do you not think that that would probably be a good idea to have a national set of standards and criterions for like our like funding of our school system?
okay, so hold on. So we're gonna move back here. You claimed that the free schooler have led to a decrease in the
Right. Can
segregation,
okay, I think
and
that we
that's
might be talking about
categorically false.
slightly different things. So when you say
Maybe
okay, when you
because
say that
we
school
probably helped to be.
segregation, what do you
Uh-huh.
mean by that? Like how does the study define school segregation?
It means that there's a more congregation of people with similar socioeconomic class and other sorts of like social groups. They become more concentrated basically rather than being more spread out.
Okay, because the way that I see that, at least in the city and the region and like the part of Sweden where I come from,
Mhm.
that is just categorically not true. Right?
Okay, do you
I'm
have any
really
research on it?
interested.
Because I have a study here.
Right, I'm really interested how the study would say that because listen, if you have school systems, okay, so listen, you know about Million Project, you know the Million
Project.
Project, the
The
housing
funding of
project,
public
yeah,
education. No,
ex-
sorry, housing.
no, housing, right?
Yep.
So the way it works is that we have like 4 or 5 big neighborhoods with lots of high density apartment buildings, right?
Yep.
that is where all the ny svenska, the new Swedish people live. AKA, that's where all the new immigrant communities live, right? And they live very segregated, far from the city centers, clustered into those communities, right? If you go to those communities, it is almost entirely like quote unquote new Swedish, right? And I'm pro-immigration, obviously, so I'm not saying that they shouldn't be there, but that is like inadvertently is a fault of a public housing project for 40 years ago, right? Like the social democratic government, it's not their fault, right? This is just one of like the unintended consequences of like public housing, right? When you have lots of people coming to the country that have like come from low economic status, they're all like pretty much shoved into low cost, rent controlled apartment complexes with high density neighborhoods, right? If you were to have a districted school system in which you only have like the amount of people that live in those neighborhoods go to all the same type of förskola, grundskola, high school, middle school, and preschool, right? You're gonna have only people from those neighborhoods going there, which means like, and the really fucked up thing is that Gothenburg, the city I live in the west coast of Sweden, was actually ranked one of Europe's most segregated cities, right? When you have a school districting system, when you have those neighborhoods, they send all their kids to the same school, you're going to eventually have schools that come from only the same socioeconomic background and only the same cultural background, right?
Okay,
I just don't see how school districting won't lead to that.
So we have a bunch of different things that you discussed here. So first of all, I agree with you that part of this is probably due to housing, just because of the effect of like housing segregation and stuff like that. And my prescribed solution to this would be having more spread out public housing programs, but that's outside of this debate. We can talk about that some other time. But I agree with you. Housing is part of it, but I definitely still believe that the free school reforms have a different part of it, because what school choice fundamentally does is that it gives the ability for those, like any market, right? You're probably very pro free market and understand liberal economics and stuff like that, is that the most informed actors are able to make the best decisions. And what tends to be the case then is that people that have most time on their hands, that have the most financial resources, tend to be the parents or the wealthy kids in question. And they tend to all send their kids to, the similar school. So I don't think that the school choice, I mean, I know that the school choice hasn't fixed it. It hasn't done any major difference. If anything, it's just led to other communities that are less like hard segregated based on sort of like housing. It's allowed them to also remain segregated due to the way school choice works. And when it comes to school districting, you said that the only way to do school districting is just by saying that, okay, we're just going to draw a circle here. You guys go to this school. That's not necessarily how it has to work. You could easily have another form of planning program working in conjunction with, for example, your public transport and stuff like that, to make sure that you can spread out different students from different socioeconomic conditions and mix them around the school. You don't just have to do the very simple thing where you just draw a circle. You can be a bit more complex.
Okay,
and
how
you
would
can
that
take
work?
some more liberty there. What do you mean?
That's like really easy to say, like, oh, we can use public transportation, but like, give me a policy position.
What do you mean? The policy position would be then giving the commune a series of like a set of funding, so that they're able to allocate not district. What's the word here? Like a commission whose job it is to sort of, what's it called? Yeah, to take a look at everybody, all the students within school age that live within certain communities, take a look at all the schools, and then make a good plan by which you can spread them out. Because more diverse school classrooms, I've read a study on this, more diverse school classrooms, they tend to perform better, they tend to be a better, healthier environment, and that would probably be the best way to do it. I just gave you a policy position, right?
That's no. Saying that you want to create a commission is not a policy position. Saying that, okay, I want to create a group that's going to make good decisions is not like me. It's not you giving me a good decision.
Wait,
right?
Do you want me to give you like the social security numbers and the names of all the students and then tell them to
no,
what
but
schools they want to
give
go
me a
to?
system. Like, okay, Sammy, how are we going to do this? Right?
You give certain funding to every commune, and you say, with this funding, you need to set up a council in which you decide to what schools every person that is a student in your community is supposed to go to.
Okay, that sounds like districting, right? Okay, so
yeah, it's not, but it's not the districting. What you said, that it was just like making circles, and I agree. Making circles is really bad because then it comes to housing. But if you do it more dynamically, then you can circumnavigate the shitty housing.
What variables are we going to take into consideration? How are we going to weight them?
Well, it depends on community basis, right?
Okay,
and there are a number of different things we know about people in Sweden through like registers and stuff like that, such as, for example, their background, their financial positioning, their tax brackets and stuff like that, their gender, things like that. We can look at all those and then distribute accordingly. This seems like a really bad argument to me.
It's not an argument. I'm asking you a question. Okay, so you're saying that we're just going to allow like local governments like just make decisions on how to do that? Because it seems like so far local governments haven't been doing good job with
I
schooling.
agree. I think that's because of a lack of funding.
Yeah,
Because the differences in fundings are radical between the different communities in Sweden. We need strong
exactly.
federal action to give
I
proper
agree,
funding
which
to each
is
other.
why the
Exactly.
which is why the state should take over and not allow
Okay.
local governments to make bad decisions.
Yeah, sure.
You really want
If you want,
if you really want our SD community to just like make like decisions on that in Malmö.
No, probably not. That might not be a good idea. You know what? Fine, you're bread peeling me, okay? Maybe the state could do it then. How about the state does it then?
Exactly. How would the state do it? So okay, I
The
understand what
state
you're
can
saying.
work with the communes. You can make a new minister for that, maybe like a new not minister, like a
or just like a
government
subsection
committee?
of like, or just a subsection of Skolverket or like blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
there's
right?
a million and one
Okay,
ways by which you can have
so-
different school districts than just drawing a circle.
Okay, so when you're drawing a circle around communities, right? When you say, okay, we're gonna take into consideration like income inequality, cultural background, socioeconomic background,
Yep.
right? So are you gonna start like moving kids around the city, saying that okay, you're kind of
Hello?
oh shit, oh fuck, hold up, I have to get off the tram 1 second. Okay, so what you're saying is like, oh listen, we're gonna like move poor kids to the other side of the city. We're gonna move all these rich kids. Gonna have to go halfway across the city, go to this school, blah blah. Like, how do you actually do it? Because so far I've heard like, oh, we should take these things into consideration. I haven't really heard a policy position yet.
But I don't see what you mean by policy position. Like, I'm not a public planner. I'm sorry. I'm just saying that we should delegate this to people that are able to do proper public planning. That can take things in, like logistics, like public transport, like socioeconomic condition, like underlying variables. Give them the funding they need. Give them the resources they need to be able to properly create school districting that is convenient, that is efficient, and that isn't segregationist in nature.
Okay, I'll change the question. How would you want your city to do it?
What do you mean? How I would want?
Let's just say you're on that commission, right? No,
Yeah,
let's
okay.
just say you're on that commission,
Yep.
right? Just give me a rough sketch of how you would do it. Like, how do you want classrooms to be decided? How do you want, like, let's say, what variables do you want kids to like go to different schools and what? How would you decide that for the kids?
Okay, I have a question for you. Do you believe that climate change exists?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, do you believe that we need to do like have some sort of strong like collectivized action towards combating climate change?
I think that international cooperation is the best way to do it, of course.
Fantastic. And through international collaborations, you need to do things like, for example, through the use of multilateral trade agreements, engage in, agree on certain regulations to your economy and stuff like that, right?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So then if I ask you now, okay, exactly what regulations, what percentages, what taxes, what are you going to do to make sure this passes? Is that a valid question?
Absolutely, because then I would actually have to give you a policy position how to do that. Do you want me to give you a list of things that I would do for climate change?
Would you want to give like exact percentages on what you have to do, or would you say, okay, let's defer to the experts?
No,
but
that's the difference. I can give you exact policy positions, which is essentially okay. These are the types of regulations I want to do. These are the forms that have existed in different countries. But
okay,
the exact percentages are different. Absolutely,
okay, the exact percentages are different. Exactly, the exact intricacies of it is very different.
But you haven't made a single policy position. I'm not asking for percentages. I'm saying how would a commission decide? How would a commission decide?
The creation of a new commission with a goal with proper funding is a policy.
Do you think that if we're having a climate change debate, I should just say, okay, let's just create a commission to solve climate change? That's my policy.
That's not the policy position. The policy position is saying
exactly. Then why are you saying we should just create a commission?
Because that's not what I said. Because that's a false equivalency. Because my position would be when we talk about climate change would be first of all engaging in large multilateral trade agreements where we put pressure on a load of different nations to actually follow the agreements that are made here, not just make a commission and have say. That's step one. Make sure that there is some like backing of power.
No. I was referencing education because you literally said
but you said that that's what I'm talking about right now is similar to just saying let's make a commission for climate change and then they'll solve it, right? Which is not what I'm saying. If you were to draw an actual equivalency of what I'm talking about right now in terms of school to climate change, the answer would be giving them first of all like the power necessary to be able to influence these decisions and make sure people will actually follow them, giving them the funding necessary to be able to do all the research and all the compilations that they have to, and giving them the personnel necessary. And then you make the commission, they see okay exactly what is the most efficient here, what exact percentages do we need to follow, how are we going to do this perfectly, what are going to be the consequences if you don't follow it, and then those are 4 questions that I cannot answer. Like,
do you understand the difference between saying I want to create a commission with good funding, being able to enforce their rules, and then trying to give like a model on how you would do it? Do you understand that there's like a distinction between that? Because then like an equivalency would be, okay, I want to create a climate change commission. I'm going to give them funding. I'm going to give them people. I'm going to give them a way to enforce their rules. And if I would ask you, okay, but what is your actual policy position? You're like, oh, that's up to them. They'll have to come up with their own like percentages. Do you see how that's like very different?
No, I see how that's different, but I don't see how it's worse or how it's bad.
Okay, no, because those are the two exact same things you're doing, right? And I think that's
Wait, hold
very
on.
bad.
How much education do you have, like just in general?
Education on like what, like
Yeah, just
what do you
general.
mean?
Like university degrees. Do you have any of the sort?
No. I'm post high school.
Okay, post high school. You're post high school graduates, and you're critiquing me because I don't have the exact percentages for these things.
No. I'm trying to ask for an actual policy position. So an example would be like, for example, if we're going to use the climate change analogy, right?
Yeah,
I would agree with you 100%. We need to create like a climate change commission,
yeah.
right? But then I would say, okay, we need to create like we need to create strict carbon pricing, and if that means a system of cap and trade, which Sweden has already implemented, in which a ton of 1 metric ton of carbon is taxed at, I think, 109 or 102 euros per metric ton of carbon.
Yep.
And then we can say that, okay, this system has worked in Sweden, this system has worked in Canada, this system has worked in California. We will implement that exact policy, but then I can understand, okay, that specific carbon price can change. Right? In the immigration debate, you haven't given me a single model or a single policy besides let's create a well-funded, well-functioning commission.
And
That's
they're
the only thing I've heard.
No, but and then what they're supposed to do, like I said, this is the equivalent to saying, okay, they can engage in different cap and trade and look at the exact pricing and then replicate, look at other systems. What I would say then in that situation, okay, the job of this commission is to look at socioeconomic condition, background, religion, previous education, yada yada yada, and then distribute them, to some degree of
Yada. That's all the important stuff. You can't yada yada.
Do you want me to give you an
past that.
exact list of every single socioeconomic condition? Is
I
that what
want you to
need?
give me a model of how
I
you
am
would do
literally
it. So,
giving you
okay,
a model.
I can give you a model. I can give you a model. I can give you a model. I can give you a model.
Okay, go
right?
for it.
I can make your case for you, right?
Go for it.
We would say this. Okay, set up a commission, right? You have a commission,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Then you would essentially take, okay, we'll take people in different areas, right? So, for example, a neighborhood in my city would be Tinnered, right? We can say Tinnered is right next to Nasset. We can say we can create 3 schools or like an X amount of schools within that huge bigger Tinnered Nasset area, and then we could say, okay, within this huge geographic area, which has good public transport, right? We can therefore start allocating students based on like the normal, based on available teachers, classroom sizes, based on the actual like availability of those children, and then we can take parents' ability to take them to school or not, which is easier, weight that by public transportation.
This is literally
time.
what I said, but you just plugged in the names of some communities.
It's not, bro, because you're saying, oh, we're just gonna have we'll just take these into consideration. I'm giving you a model of how we can take geographical
you said literally the same. You just plugged in a location, and then you mentioned and then you mentioned some variables that I didn't talk about, but that are also relevant.
You brought up variables to take into consideration.
Your model is bad because you didn't mention fucking wealth. Your model is bad that's not how I don't have to
because I didn't mention what? Tell me.
Because you didn't mention wealth of the family.
But I did.
No, you didn't mention that.
Did I not?
No, you didn't.
Okay, then okay.
I guess your model is shit. Background. Okay, cool.
Oh, well, I just brought it up now. Now my model
you didn't bring about immigration status.
That's what cultural background means.
Well, not necessarily. You can have a different cultural background, but it doesn't mean that you may be an asylum seeker. You may be here on refugee thing. You may be here on legal immigration. That's not the same thing. You missed that. You need to talk about that as well.
Okay, then we'll add.
You see, this is so useless. This is so useless.
No, but it's literally not because there's a difference between. No, it's not. I disagree.
Because I'm gonna. You defer to the experts. You said, okay, give me all the relevant so you're gonna take a look at all the relevant socioeconomic factors that influences someone's life.
Okay. You know what? A better example. What is a system that already exists that you think that we could implement?
What's in another country that this already exists?
Yeah, in another country, different part of the world, different region.
I'm gonna be real with you. Most fucking school systems are kind of garbage.
Okay, wait. So you're advocating for a system that doesn't exist and you can't explain it, just saying we should create a commission?
What do you mean? I literally explained it to you.
No,
yes,
my God, bro.
You create a commission
you just said,
that works with the federal government, that takes into consideration a whole lot of socioeconomic conditions, and then try to distribute people, broadly, in a non-concentrated way, based on the available schools, based on those characteristics.
If you think that that's a model, then I don't know what else to say, my guy.
Okay. Neither do I. Okay.
Okay. You know what? Okay, fine. Let's go on. All right, we're not getting anywhere with this. Okay. First of all, going on. I don't think that our education system in Sweden largely has been a problem with free school. I think it's been a part of a national curriculum. If you measure
this disagree. The studies disagree with you. I'm gonna need you to provide
I'm sorry, but statistics disagree as well. So if you look at, for example, the decline in PISA, right?
Yep.
The International Standard PISA results, it dipped from the early 2000s all the way to 2014. right?
Yeah, it started dipping earlier. Actually, it started dipping in
No,
1995
it
already.
dipped all the way till there, and then it turned around 2014. So it was dipping from early 2000s, I think from the beginning of 1998, all
No,
the way
it
down to
started falling in
2014.
1995.
Sure. And then it started going all the way, and it went back up in 2014, right? We saw the reforms under Jan Björklund as the Minister of Education. We saw new national curriculum passed, and we saw reforms to Skolverket and other institutions that deal with our national curriculum, how our national tests are created, and like the type of like teachers' guidelines, right? Now, in 2018, 4 years after this national curriculum has passed, Sweden now ranks one of the highest scoring countries in the world, above the United States, above our Scandinavian countries, and above almost all European countries.
I
And this
don't
is the
think that.
PISA
Hold on,
results
hold
from
on. Give me a
2000.
second. Give me a
Yeah,
second.
go search
Because this is saying.
PISA
Okay.
results 2018.
Give me a second. I'm on the page right now. PISA 18.
And then I can also send you a link from our own Skolverket, our own government. Our own government.
Yeah, I'm opening one right now that says that the effects of the free school have been. I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's 100% possible that the curriculum has a big effect. Absolutely, but that doesn't mean that the free school reform hasn't been bad.
Okay, but my point is that, okay, listen, we've clearly seen that a reform in our national curriculum has totally 180'd our dipping results. So now being one of the highest in Europe, and now being way ahead of the United States, being ahead of even a lot of Asian countries, it seems like we can really easily, through changes in our national curriculum, turn around our education system a lot easier than having to get rid of free schools.
Yeah, but it could be. What if it could be even better? What if we didn't have to financially overcompensate them? What if we could reduce school segregation?
I agree, and we can all do that. Do like nationalizing the schools, like
okay,
not nationalizing,
so
but I mean like through taking control.
So what if it could be even better without free schooler?
Okay. Tell me what are the foundational problems with free schools?
There's a shit ton of it. I mean, we have the four things that I mentioned previously. That's affirmed by research, right? The increase in segregation, the like barely like negligible effect on grades, sometimes slightly positive, sometimes slightly negative. The effects of the free school choice, which is basically just gives rich kids already even more ability or even more advantages, and the fact that we're wasting taxpayer money on it.
It doesn't matter. Like rich kids, dude, free schools are free. You don't pay for them.
Oh my god! But different free schools have different levels. Like different free schools have different levels of good, right? So depending on the information and the time that people's parents have to be able to look at what the best possible school for their children is, and to be able to live in areas with good education, they are able to give their child a better education because they're wealthy. Doesn't matter if the school's free. That doesn't
Wait,
are you
saying that? But are you saying that? Okay, but wealth and like doing research on schools aren't the same thing. Are you saying that parents shouldn't be able to like do research on what school best fits their children?
I'm saying that it shouldn't be the parents' responsibility. It should be the government's responsibility because every parent doesn't do that. And I don't want to give someone education just because they had shitty parents.
Right. Do you think that perhaps that has more to do with funding than just the existence of free schools? And do you think that perhaps we can do that better under a national system rather than the system alone?
Well, how does that have to do with funding? That has to do with school choice.
No, it has to do with funding.
No, it doesn't. It has to do with the wealth of the parents. Okay,
why are free schools better?
Well, partly because they exaggerate grades, and then also because they receive like really high funding. That's way too much.
So it is funding.
To some extent, but it also has to do with the segregation, right? Because you will have the disproportionate amount of wealthy people of a better socioeconomic condition going to the free schooler, because the free schooler will set up in wealthy communities, because that's where you need to dedicate the least amount of resources per student, and that is the area where you can extract the most amounts of profit. So you have public schools which need to operate everywhere, even in the shittiest communities in Sweden, and then you have free schools which can kind of pick where they need to operate.
Okay, you've already said two wrong things. First of all, extract the most profit. You don't extract more profit in wealthy communities because the students don't pay for the schools.
No, you're dumb. You're dumb. Hold up. You're objectively wrong. Okay, so you get X amount of money per student that goes to your school. Okay? We're on the same page. Okay.
Right.
Who do you think has an easier time learning? The parents of a wealthy kid or the parents of a poor kid?
I mean, like statistically, averagely, probably a wealthy kid.
Exactly. So if you receive X amount of funding per student and you need to dedicate less resources per student if their parents are wealthy, if you have a poor preschooler, a preschooler made of poor kids, and a preschooler made of rich kids, which ones do you need to?
Grades they get, right?
No, it's an X amount based on the student, how many students.
No. If you look at the actual way that funding is delegated in Sweden, it's an X amount of students, and then there's a multiplier for the grades of that, the grades of each student.
You don't want to get into the grade discussion because preschooler cheat the fuck out of grades.
Oh.
So that's not something you want to talk about.
Okay, but they're fucking themselves over by giving less money. Then you realize that, right?
Wait, what do you mean? No, because then you're gonna have more students
Yes.
going to your school. Because if you have post higher grades, then you're gonna be more
Okay,
incentivized for parents to go to your school.
you still get less money though.
Well, no, you
You
don't,
realize?
because if you
Yes, you
have
do.
more
The worse
rich
grades
kids
you
in your
have,
schools, you need to
the
spend
worse.
less money to give them good education, and you can extract more in profit. You can take more for yourself.
That's not how it works because schools get more money depending on how badly the grades do in school. That's how money is funneled through the education system. So, for example, there's a school in my city called Untitled Chapter, right? It's like kind of like a not very good gymnasium, not very good high school, right? They get far more funding per student, a lot more funding per student, something a lot more than like the high school I went to, which was like pretty hard to get into. You need like pretty high intagning, what is that, entrance exam score to get into. They get far more funding, right? So funding is delegated to schools with worse students. So what you're just saying is wrong.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, so you're making the claim that it's not X amount per student.
No, it is X amount per student, but you realize that's not the only way they get funding, right? It's X amount per student, and then it's plus the grades of those students.
Wait, plus the grades of those students?
Exactly. So you get a,
Wait,
you get a certain
Do you
amount.
mean you get more money for good grades, or you get less money?
You get less money for worse. You get more money for worse grades, and you get less money for good grades. And this is an attempt for different municipalities across Sweden to equalize school performance in different districts or different cities.
Well, clearly it's not enough, right? Because we do have different.
Yeah, I agree. Clearly, it's not enough. Maybe it's almost like the municipalities are doing a really shit job, and maybe if we have a national standard, then maybe it'd be a lot better job. Maybe the problem isn't friskolor. Maybe the problem is the fact that the municipalities don't know how to handle education in the same way that our broken healthcare system is taken care of by the landsting, the how do I say, regional governments, rather than the state itself as well. It seems like local governments tend to have really bad, how do I say, programs
Right,
for
hold on,
how
give
to
me a
deal
second.
with this
I'm
stuff.
gonna look at the funding thing here. From what I read, it's X amount per student, and then there's an extra you can apply to if there's anyone with a learning disability. But
It's not only that. You can also take into consideration särskolor, which is like a special
hold on.
needs, special disabilities.
I'm gonna look this up because from what I read, that
I
doesn't
don't know
seem to
how
be
you. Do you live in Sweden?
I do live in Sweden. I've lived here for.
How do you not know this?
I'm not sure, buddy. Hold on, let me just check this if this is.
Well, I'm not sure either. Like you expect to be
funding in Swedish? What is funding in Swedish?
Also, there's a few words. Depends on like how you wanna.
Yeah, funding, like for schools.
Also school, also betyg bidrag, I guess.
No, if I write school bidrag, it's gonna give me CSN.
Yeah, true. Oh, dude, CSN is based, bro. That 1,000. Oh, CSN is a national thing. You know, just like really cool how we have like. It's cool how like national things tend to be better than like regionally or like locally managed things when it comes to healthcare and education.
Yeah, sure. Hold
on. Yeah, and like
wait, hold on. I have to find this.
Since this is municipality, right? It's going to be different levels for different municipalities. So like it's really hard to find like information on this shit because it's so like decentralized. But I think a good source.
But the money comes from the government.
The money comes from local taxes and the government, and also different ways. It just seems like a lot of the problems with free school just happen to mean that you get bad funding.
You've said it, hold on. De är inte finansierat med elevavgifter. Det skiljer från privat, right. Huvudsakligen finansieras skattemedel. Bestämmelser inriktade ekonomi. Svenska finansieras med skolpeng. Okay, skolpeng. That's how they're funded, right?
I think there's more way than only skolpeng, but sure.
Svenska friskolor är skattefinansierade med skolpeng. That's all it says here on the main Wikipedia page.
Yeah, but it's not about friskolor. It's just about how like schools in general are funded. Because friskolor are not the only ones that get more or less funding depending on grades. It's all schools.
Skolpeng. Can I just? I know I've seen this before. Somebody wants to serve a skolpeng and.
Yeah, so it just seems like, yeah, it's the problem is underfunding, right? The problem isn't like having charter schools and not having charter schools. And I know everyone likes to make the meme, oh yeah, you don't solve the education problem just by like allowing kids to go an extra 40 minutes to school. But but
everybody doesn't have the opportunity to go an extra 40 minutes to school.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. But that's like a really bad argument.
Wait, how's that?
Because an example. Okay, so you know how our education system works? You have like specialization, right? We have like 12 different specializations of education.
Yep.
right? Not every school can have 12 different programs. So you have like a bunch of small schools, right, that specialize in 2 or 3, right? So it just seems like having school choice when it comes to gymnasium really allows for different schools to specialize in different things. And we all know through the specialization of, the basic economics of specialization, you get special equipment, special funding, special teachers, special capital, or in this case, it would be like school equipment. You can like have a few schools that specialize in a few things, do it really, really well, rather forcing like
Okay,
having.
what's this called? This funding you said based on the different grades. What's the name for it? School paying is the X amount.
I'm not necessarily what it's called, but I know that's the system in place.
But you don't know what
So
it's
if you
called.
just,
Because
so if you just
I've
search,
never come across this before.
yeah, well, I don't know how, because if you just like Google betygsatte skolpeng eller betygsatte pengarna som går till skolan, blah blah blah.
It looks like there aren't any great matches for it. Okay, riksprislistan, överlämning vid skolbyte.
Of course, it's not gonna be in Riks, my guy, because this is a like kommunal process.
Okay, betygsatt skolpeng didn't give shit.
Okay.
I've never heard of this before. And
okay, well, I'm sorry, because this is something that like my school rector has like talked extensively about. I was
they
active
talk to
in
students about it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, dude, are you kidding me?
Right.
Do you know how much like they complain about like getting like a lower funding because our students, or like the high school I went to and the school I went to, got better grades? And then if you the
rector complains to the students about that.
100%, bro. Did you not talk to your rector?
I mean, I did. I had a fucking meeting with them because they were doing They weren't doing anything about fucking COVID. So I talked to them.
Oh, wait? Are you still in gymnasium?
Yeah.
Aha. Okay. I don't know. I went to it. Wait, do you live in Gothenburg?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never come across like just like talking to the rector in that way. Okay. But okay, so if we go back a couple of steps, to the thing with the differences in what's it called, in education like that. So if there's a free schooler are fundamentally gonna want to set up in places where it's like where the average like ease of learning is higher. Do you agree with this?
I would really be like very hard to say agree with that, but like for the sake, I don't know, maybe, because I don't know, I don't see like really how like why that would be the case, because it seems that they're fucking themselves over on like
no,
profits.
but how would they fuck themselves over if it takes less resources?
Because if they're getting less funding,
kids.
My guy. And also, it's like taking less resources. Like, is that really true? Like,
even if we operate exactly on what you're talking about, even if we operate on the assumption of the bonus fucking money already, we both agree that if the school paying based on betyg exists, which I'm not sure I haven't come across, but even if we say it operates exactly like you say it functions in a bad way, right? It's not enough, correct?
Wait. And first of all, do you think
no? I can answer my question. Like, it's not correct, right?
Do you think that they have worse facilities and pay the teachers less than public schools?
It's not correct, right?
Well, what is not correct?
No, what I just asked you. It's fuck. What was the question I just asked? I asked you a question and you started talking about something else. Okay, so even if this betyg thing operates exactly like you said, we both agree that it's not enough, right? That the bonus.
Sure, I mean, like, yeah, but that funding by municipal, by municipal governments are bad.
So
badly.
Perfect. Okay, you agree that it's not enough. That's all we need. That's relevant to the argument I'm about to make. Okay, so if a school wants to set up, okay, and there are different places we can set up. It can set up in a place where you can have you have people of like more ease of learning and people with less ease of learning, and you know that there is some form of balancing effect to make it so that the funding for these schools are going to be more or less the same, but that's garbage. But that doesn't fucking work. So you then, as a free school, where would you want to set up? Would you want to set up in the community where it's easier for your kids to learn, so you don't have to spend as much money on them, so you can extract more in profits? Or do you want to set up in the community where it's less ease of learning, so you need to spend more resources per child, and therefore can extract less in profits?
Ceteris paribus, easier, but it's like, to what degree is that easier?
Exactly. But we already agree that equalizing effect, the one that based on grades, is garbage. It's shit.
No, I didn't agree on that. What are you talking about?
You just agreed with that. You just said it was
no.
way too little.
I said that the way it's done right now is not good. That doesn't
exactly.
Mean the system is bad.
It's bad now.
Those are two fundamentally different
it's exactly
things.
the same. I asked you right now, where would that school want to set up?
Saying that the funding is not enough and saying the system of funding is bad are two fundamentally different things. Do you realize that?
They're different things, but they are not relevant to what we're talking about right now. I'm asking you right now.
What specifically are you asking me?
Okay, right now, a free schooler has the ability to set up in a community with people with good ease
It
of
would
learning,
actually
or with
no,
with
not
poorly ease of
necessarily.
learning?
That's
Where
not
would
how
they want to
schools
set
are
up?
set up. That's not how schools are set up. So just because, like, okay, so for example, just because schools want to be set up in like rich areas,
Yep.
right? It completely depends on city zoning and public zoning of that city, right?
Yep.
There's so many variables. Schools just can't like start up wherever they want.
No, it was pretty easy for them to do this for a really long time. Etableringsrätt was
Uh,
fucking shit. It was so easy for anyone to set up.
no, but like I'm talking about like actual location, not just like setting up a school.
No,
Because
I'm
they're
talking
still
about location
dependent
as well. It was super easy.
to just set up wherever you
got a
wanted.
bit more strict with it a few years ago, but for a really long time it was fucked.
Okay, sure. Okay, fine. Sure. I'll give you that. Sure.
Okay,
They
so
set up in
they
wealthy
can...
neighborhoods.
Exactly. Okay, so then in that situation, you asked me why free schoolers are performing better, and I said that it's because they want to set up in richer communities where the
Right.
ease of learning is way better, and because they
Right.
can extract more in profits there.
Right.
So then if you have a disproportionate amount of free schools towards the communities with higher ease of learning, that's why they're performing better. It has nothing to do with the ability or that free schoolers are good. It just has to do with where they exist and who goes
Do you think
to
that
them.
okay? Do you think that free schools have better facilities or pay their teachers higher?
Probably.
Okay, so it's almost so that's crazy. So you're saying that free schools spend more money on faculty, spend more money on school equipment, spend more money on like renovations of the school, blah blah blah.
Well, that depends on what you're talking about exactly, because
Do
we
you
know
think
that
that perhaps do you think that perhaps
we
kind
know
of
that
goes
they're
against what you were saying
overcompensated.
before about how they just want to save money on like spending less on
I
education?
mean, we know that they're overcompensated. They don't use the tax money we give them for the right
Whether
things.
or not they're overcompensated or not is irrelevant to the argument you made just now, saying that they set up in different neighborhoods to decrease the cost of like their actual education per student, while you just admitted that free schools spend more money on teachers, spend more money on faculty, spend more money on renovations, spend more money on school appliances. So those two things are incompatible statements.
But we can perfectly do that on the public school system, but we don't because funding is fucked.
No. Yeah. No. Do you admit that those two statements you made are fundamentally incompatible?
No.
How?
Because it's possible for there to be one force. There's multiple forces that make something one thing, right? Part of the force can be that they're set up in richer communities, and part of it can be because they have more background capital to them. It can be a mix of two different things there. Even if you had equal
Okay.
background
So
capital...
you made one statement, right? You essentially said that free skolor, right, want to decrease the funding as much as like decrease the amount they spend on the students, like so much, right?
There's the initial investment, which
No, not the initial investment. We're talking like per student cost. You're saying
Yep.
that they take students that they think are going to cost them less money to educate, right?
Yep.
Right, but they actually spend a lot more money than normal
Initially setting up, because they rack in fucking crazy
No.
amounts of profits.
No, not initially. They spend more on teachers. They spend more on books.
Wait, man,
they spend more on
rack in
equipment. They spend
fucking
more on appliances.
insane profits.
Yeah.
Like
Do you
what?
think- okay.
What one gymnasium made 253 million crowns of profit during like a 4-year period.
Okay. Okay.
That's funding.
Statement
that's
A,
money.
statement A,
That's
statement-
state
okay.
money that can be used
okay.
towards making schools better. 250 million from one school in 4 years. How is this efficient allocation of resources?
Yes or no? Yes or no? Did you say that free skolor want to take on students that cost less to educate?
Yes.
That per individual, as in the running costs, not the
Yes.
initial capital,
Yes.
the running costs, take less money, right?
Yep.
Then why do free skolor spend a lot more on running costs in terms of salaries, in terms of wages, in terms of appliances, in terms of renovations, in terms of perishable goods like food, in terms of school appliances, books, computers, all that, which are not capital investment, which are running costs? Why do they spend so much more if what you're saying is that the goal is so that they can spend as little to educate each kid as possible? Do you think that those two are compatible statements?
1 second.
Bruh. I mean, like, you admitted that you said yes to the second statement.
Yeah, they probably spend more, but it's not.
Bruh, so you're saying that they actually do spend more money on
they
each
make
student?
short-term investment in the facilities and the running costs, but there's no way they're keeping a constant high level of running costs because they're
They
making
literally
so much
are,
money.
though. They pay teachers more
Then
in
please
free
explain
school
how
than
they're
they
making
do.
250 million profit.
Because they get unequal funding, my guy. Because they get more funding, which isn't a problem with free school, which is a problem with how funding is dealt out in in our municipalities.
But if we had no preschooler and the schools were just set up equally around everywhere, and funding could be directed completely when it comes to on a state, on a federal basis, based on the communities that need them the most, and
but
you
we
will
wouldn't
not
need
have
to. We
profits.
wouldn't need to get. You wouldn't need to get rid of free schooler. You could do that with or without.
But
free
why should we want profits in our education system?
What is wrong with profit? Okay, where do you
Because
think those
there's
profits
250
go towards?
million crowns in one school that is just leaving Sweden, not educating children. That 250
It's not
million could be
leaving Sweden. Where do you think that goes towards?
Well, it depends. Sometimes, like for example, there are plenty of universities that are owned by like corporations that are not even like residing in Sweden.
Okay,
so a lot of the money doesn't even stay in Sweden. A lot of the money just fucking leaves. And even if it doesn't, the fact that we spent 250
the money
million...
cannot leave. They pay corporate income taxes. They pay personal income taxes. They pay lots of different taxes along the way. Money doesn't leave Sweden. You know this, right? Like this is like the myth of like
there can be some of it disappears in corporate in corporate income tax. Some of it
doesn't leave
goes
Sweden.
away in income tax.
It's called remittances. This is remittances. It doesn't leave Sweden. Money can't just leave a country. This is like the conservative argument of like, oh, immigrants come here, they get wages and they just send it abroad. That's the same, dude. That's not how remittances works.
It doesn't matter if they're leaving or not. That is 250 million that could be spent.
That is 250 million
that is meant to be
either
spent
sent
on education.
back into the tax. That is 250 million that is either sent back to the tax base or sent back into reinvesting and creating more schools. We can take a great example of this of IES.
A lot of it is just lining people's pockets.
Lining people's pockets, which they pay income taxes, okay, what happens to people's profits?
You know what? You just had the fucking 5-head idea, okay? Why do we care about any funding if it all just ends up back where we want it anyway in the long run?
No, because you're painting a much darker picture than than it actually is.
Wait, why does it matter if we have like budget overscot and we have poor funding if it all just ends up in the taxation system anyway?
Well, what do you mean? We take into consideration taxes and budget all the time. What are you talking about?
Okay,
that's literally the basic budget 101. What the fuck are you talking about? Like we literally take into consideration people tax levels and incomes. What do you mean?
Yeah, okay. So then it doesn't matter that there's that 250 million which was dedicated towards making schools better is now.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm just saying it's not as big as a deal as they're actually making it out to be. Because at first you said, "Oh, that country, the money's leaving Sweden," but it's really not. A lot of it stays in Sweden either through capital investment.
Yeah, but there's a long-term process, right? If there's 250 million that goes out of there, it takes a lot of time for that 250 million to come back into a place where it can be funded. It can be used to fund schools again. This is inefficient funding where you have a big portion of it that doesn't directly go to the goal that you want it to, but then after a long period of time through other means such as taxes and stuff like that, eventually comes some of it back into the tax system, which is put again into this inefficient system.
Taxes are done. What are you talking about? Taxes are done on a monthly basis. What are you talking about?
I'm sorry, do we have a 100% tax in Sweden?
What? No, no, you said it takes a long time. I'm saying it doesn't.
Okay. For somebody, let's say somebody made 200 or some group of
people
made 250 million. How
you're
long do you think
basically
it
saying
took
that
for
all
that
profits are
250
inefficiency.
million?
Do you think that profit is inefficiency?
No, I don't necessarily think profit is inefficiency.
Okay, then why do you think that is so for schools then?
Because that funding is directed completely from the state and is not coming from consumers. It's coming from our tax money, and it is sent there with a very specific purpose, and it's not filling it.
Wait, okay, so it's inefficient when the consumers pay for it. No, it's inefficient when the state pays for it. It's not inefficient when it comes from the students, consumers. So how does that make sense?
Because we can exist in a system where that 200 there is you cannot extract any profit, and that 250 million.
Right, I'm like this is like even saying that I think that school should have gotten that much money. Right? If that school is getting all that money, right, which I don't think is like the huge problem, fund that school less, give that money to other schools. Like that just seems like something that a national redistribution of like school funds would fix, right? But that's not a problem with free school. But then
you wouldn't have anyone doing free schooler, because if you can't make a profit of it, why the fuck even do it? So many people are doing free schools just because it makes a profit. So if you limit with funding,
that free schooler are not always profit driven. There's like non-profit free schools.
Yeah, there are some of them, right, but not all of them. And there's a considerable, like for example, that one where it's 250
so the problem
million,
isn't free schooler. The problem is like profit maximizing firms,
which is intrinsic to a lot of free schooler.
Which is not, because you just admitted that it's not in a lot of free schooler. So it's not intrinsic.
A lot
to anything.
is a stretch.
It's a single form.
Okay,
a lot, a little bit, some, whatever. But therefore, even if it is like only one,
the vast majority take out fucking profit.
a vast majority don't take out 250 million. That's why you're citing one
disagree.
school.
I don't think they all take out 250 million, but they all take a profit, and any profit there should be used towards education, not towards profit and lining someone's pockets.
What is the role of profit? What is the role of profit in a market?
What's the role of profit in the market?
Right. So what price signal? What price signal does profits?
Yeah, price signals works when there is a perfect first of all, when things are handled. I think when there isn't things like grade cheating, for example, which is a massive issue. Massive issue is very massive.
That is
okay. If a school is making more in profits because they're posting higher grades than this for the same amount of knowledge that public schools are doing, that means that they needed to put in less money to reach those levels of grades than the public school had to, and that means that amount of money can just be taken out. And
that kind of seems like that's something that school of etiquette is responsible of doing. Crazy how we already have
why should we give people an incentive to lie on the grading systems?
We're not. If anything, we're giving more funding to students that give lower grades. We've already went over this. Schools that have lower grades get more public funding. They don't have an incentive.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, listen. I'll tell you this. Profits, right, give an incentive for increased capital investment into that market, right? Profits go up and down, but when profits are high, right, more people want to invest into that business, right? That means higher capital investment. That means more that means more people wanted to start schools. That means more people wanted to actually get involved into the education market, right? Profits aren't necessarily a bad thing because of the incentives they actually get a hold of, right? So we don't say that profit is inefficiency when it comes to the computer market. Profit is not inefficiency when it comes to the car market.
Because that's a different thing. Because it's not taxation money. It's not tax money that's given for.
How does that make any difference? Profit is profit. It's still a price signal, and people are going to bring in private investment.
Paying X amount. Because it's not. You're not purchasing a product. It's the government that's doing it. It's not individual people.
It doesn't matter. It's still a price signal. It's literally still a price signal. Do you think that price signals just stop working when it's a government contracted, when it's government contracted?
What price is being charged?
No. Do you know what the price system is?
I know what the fucking. Wait, what do you mean? Do I know what the price system is?
Do you know what the price system is? The price system is how we allocate capital within a market economy. In which so how do you
prices are?
No. Oh my god, bro. Price theory and price signal is not the same thing. Okay, why do capitalists? Okay, what industries do capitalists invest in?
Profitable ones.
In profitable ones, right? Okay, so what is the signal given by profitability in a market?
What is the signal given by profitability?
What is the incentive? Okay, so you just admitted that capitalists invest in profitable industries, right?
Yep.
Right. Okay, so if I'm saying, okay, let's say that Preschool will create X amount of profits, right?
Yep.
What incentive does that give to capitalists, or what incentive does that give to capital investors?
To engage in that industry.
Exactly, to invest in the industry, right?
But doesn't necessarily have to do a lot with investment. It could just a free school. It could run only on the B drug that they receive from the government in some cases, but
right, in which you're saying creates a profit.
Exactly. So that's literally that's okay. So we have the government. We have a free schooler that is not investing a significant amount to the school, and then we're giving money to this free school for the education, and they spend some of it on building the schools, some of it on providing the educational resources, some of it on the teachers, some of it on this, some of this on that, some of that on that. But then a lot of that money is not going into that. It's being taken out in profits.
Okay, what signals does that profit give? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Right. Okay, what signals does that profit give?
A signal for people to invest in it, or you're just going in circles.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, because I don't understand how you're not understanding this.
Because we just have a middleman that is just taking educational funding, but is not allocating bad?
Do you buy milk straight from the farmer? Are you saying the middleman cannot give value added?
But clearly they haven't, because they haven't led to an increase in school grades. They haven't, because the goal of education is not to make profit from it, is to increase the level of education available. And the free schools have failed at that. They have failed to provide their purpose. All they are doing is extracting a profit.
No, they give specialization into different schools.
We can have a specialized communal system if we want to.
Okay, but it hasn't happened so far.
Because
right, and it just seems like the communal,
and
it seems like it seems like the communal systems that have actually been in place, the communal governments haven't done a good job at doing that. So the free school has been there to take its place, right?
Do you honestly
like the way that
it's impossible to do the current?
I don't think
Swedish
that it's impossible. I just think that it hasn't
schools?
happened yet.
Because we did this reform like 30 years ago.
Why hasn't there been another reform? It seems like maybe something like this is hard to.
I really want another reform.
Okay, maybe it seems like pushing something like this is politically pretty fucking hard. And in the wake of that, we've had free school to do it. If we can have a public system that is politically viable, that our politicians will vote for, that have created a model, have created a system of funding to do so, then maybe we should get rid of free school. If we have finally admitted,
so you're basically you're making the argument that you're making the argument that the best idea immediately rises to the top and becomes like integrated and becomes the one that ends up passing.
No,
that's literally what you just said. That if that couldn't be done, why hasn't it happened already?
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that free school has filled a void that our political system has failed. If the state can create, I agree that having like, let's say, theoretically a cheaper, better, more equitable school-funded system.
What void has that filled? What void has it filled?
It has filled specialization.
Can we not do specialization on the public schools?
Yes, we can, but it hasn't. That's the problem.
Because
I want to do it. I want to do it, but it hasn't happened yet. That's my argument.
Okay, so you're in favor of making all the schools public and then having specialization there.
I'm saying that if we can create a system that
yes or no, are you in favor of that?
Obviously, in favor of what?
Of making everything completely public and having specialization.
It would be entirely dependent on how we do it and what model.
Now we're going back to the model.
Do you think that's unfair?
So if we have a school system that is we kick out all the fucking the
would you rather have the American public school system than what we have in Sweden?
No.
Okay, but I thought you want. Okay, so you're saying that it depends on what model of like public schooling we take in?
I don't know why you're talking about the U.S. That's funded by property taxes.
No. You literally said, you're giving me black and white. Do you want a publicly funded school system? When I said depends on what model, you're like, oh my god, it's back to the models. So you agree?
The reason why I said that is because you have some weird fucking definition about what a model is. But
I'm sorry, bro, because I actually
anyway.
I'm sorry, bro, because I actually think that is important the way we structure school systems. I'm sorry if you don't believe that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, bro.
So what about a system in which?
I thought we were talking about. Okay.
I'm providing a model. I'm giving you a model. Isn't that what you wanted?
Okay. Yeah, give me a model.
Okay, perfect. Okay, what if we live in a society in which nice. Okay, what if we live in a society in which all of the schools we kick out all the fucking the free schooler shit? Okay, everything is owned like publicly by the government and run by the government, and then you have you have what's it called the communes who synthesize reports based on the performance of their local schools. So they synthesize, for example, grades, how they rank on the national program, maybe like a whole other things that like relevant, like how good a school is doing, maybe prevalence of bullying. I'm not sure, I don't run a school, things like that. They send it to the Minister of Education or whatever, and they all take a look at it. They take a look at that. Okay, which schools are struggling, which ones are not struggling, how much funding are they receiving right now? Okay, how do we do this? Do we want to reallocate funding? Maybe we want to do things like, for example, provide incentives for good teachers to go to this school. So this school is really struggling right now when it comes to like the school in fucking, I don't know, Rinkeby is really struggling right now. Let's do it so that, okay, teachers should go here. We're gonna raise wages for teachers who want to start going to school in Rinkeby. And by that way, you're going to attract, this is market shit, you're going to want to attract a bunch of good teachers that are going to want to compete with each other
wages.
For that, yeah, exactly, for that spot in Rinkeby. And then you get public funding of resources. The money's going 100% to the educational process. You will get competition within teachers to get the best teachers going to the communities that need it most.
Great model. Can you give me an empirical evidence where that's been successful in the past?
Okay, so I just don't want to fall back in this. So does this model make sense to you logically?
That is a model that you presented, and like I'm willing to say that's a better model if you can give like statistical evidence in which that model has been tried in the past, or a model close to that system, and that we can say for sure empirically that has led to better results. Can you give me Can you give me empirical evidence that a model like that has been more successful in the past?
But we don't. Okay, first of all, there's no other.
Okay, so you're saying that you want to switch over. You're saying that you want to switch over to a model that's never been tested. That we have no empirical evidence that's actually going to be better.
That's how a lot of the biggest paradigm shift in our societies have happened.
Okay, do you think that a lot of the paradigm shifts in our society has been positive? Or are you just gonna chance are you just gonna chance having a bad school system to just be that like tested paradigm shift?
Okay, so it depends on a whole lot of things. So for example, we can determine that right now, the system we have right now is fucked. We can also say,
Well, I mean, like, it seems like
hold on.
right now
We can
we're one
also
of the
look at the
highest in the
past.
world.
We can look at. I don't have Sweden too with completely public school systems. We can look at the past. We can look at when it was public, how our grades were performing then. They were performing pretty damn well when it comes to the funding. The schools are more egalitarian. There was a mix of like the children of people who own factories, and then the children who like clean shoes for a living going to the same school. The grades were good. There's a whole lot of other things that are different, but there's no way to provide like 100% like model 2 for Swedish education. We just know that based on the indications we have right now, where we see that the current system is not working, it is overcompensated. We have been making improvements, like you said, with the curriculum changes, which have done really good things.
Huge improvements. We're literally one of the highest rankings in the world right now.
I know, but you know what? I want to strive beyond. Okay, I want to be even better. Okay.
You want to be even better? Okay.
Yes, I
give
want to
me
be even better.
empirical evidence to do that.
Okay, if you are the first person who is making strides, like I don't know of this system, like
do you think this is like there's never been a public education system before? Like, do you really believe that?
Sorry, no, but it depends because there's no other countries that really have like because we in Sweden have a very like special way of public planning, right?
I know
when the system we have of kommuner and landsting and the state, the way our government runs, the way funding is allocated.
I can give you one. France.
Does it fill the exact?
It fills a lot of things he said. Yeah, the way that they distribute school teachers in the country. Yeah.
Okay.
It really does. It's very similar.
Hold on.
If you look at the way that teachers are allocated throughout the country.
Hold on. Okay, there are private schools in France. I don't want fucking. So it's not that then. It's something else.
Okay, but no, I was talking about the allocation of teachers. You were talking about Rinkeby.
Yeah, but okay, okay, hold on. Okay, now we're gonna. Okay, are there? Do you know if there are charter schools in France?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is charter schools.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then it's not comparable because the issue then is you will run into the same thing that we're
specifically about the way you were going to allocate teachers.
But one of the main things I talked about when it comes to models is that everything is completely public. I think that a model that is mixed like we have right now, which is like half free schooler, half public school, is probably one of the worst combinations you can have, right? Because then you will have, like I demonstrated before, free schooler going to like communities where it's easier for them to make money. And that's not even relevant because you can get hung up on that. When we have certain schools that are making a profit, that they're taking money out of the educational system that could be used towards educating children. And that money, under a completely public system, would not disappear. That money would remain within the schooling system and is actively producing a utility. So that's a key difference between having a fully public system and having a mixed system. In the mixed system, you are bleeding money out of the Swedish school system. In the public one, there's no way that money can go except for into the education.
Or we just reform the way that we fund schools.
No, unless you get rid of the profit thing, there is no way that you will not lose money.
How do charter schools, how do free schools make money? It's when you give them more than they spend, right?
Okay, so do you want to give them exactly how much they need?
I want to get. Well, I mean, like no school gets exactly how much they need, but it seems like some schools are getting too much. Yeah.
I agree with you. So, but do you recognize it? Do you think it's a bad thing that there's profits being made at all?
No, I don't. I don't think that profits are necessarily bad.
I agree. Profits isn't necessarily bad. However, within the educational system, I think profits are intrinsically bad.
I don't think so.
Because I want all the money that is being dedicated towards improving education to go towards improving education. Not to some business or to some wealthy person.
Oh,
I want the most efficient allocation of resources towards the end goal, which is providing good education for the people that live in our country.
I mean, that's almost tautological, but sure, whatever.
Well, how is it tautological? What part of that is tautological?
If you define good as not having profits, then sure.
No, but that's not what I said. That's not at all what I said. My argument came from efficient allocation of resources.
Not really, bro. Not really. I mean, like, you literally said that, like, listen, I think that profits are bad because when people make profit off like schooling, that's bad. And then you're saying
no,
that, like,
I said it was bad because that is money that should be being used towards educating people that is instead lining the pockets of people.
But if that lining of pockets through profits leaves price signals to therefore increase investment into schools, do you think that's bad?
Well,
If
if it was going,
increase,
if
okay,
oh my
if
fucking God.
the increase in profit led to an increase in private capital investment into schools, is that bad?
If an increase
You're a
in profit led to an
consequentialist,
increase
right?
in private school investment, okay, but fam, I can't believe this.
Hold on. We were supposed to have a conversation about immigration, right?
Yeah, and then we
How
got
about
into
this?
this.
How about this? How about this? Let's just agree to disagree on schools. Okay?
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, what?
No, we'll move on.
Oh my god, right. No, I don't understand how you can't understand basic concepts.
What basic concept do I not understand?
Price signals, my guy.
But I understand how price signals work in a regular market,
It seems like
charter
it
schools are
seems
something
it doesn't.
completely different.
No, it's not, because the basic foundational concepts are still the
Okay,
same.
moving on. It was just
I
okay.
just don't understand how you can't
If
understand
what
that.
you were saying were true, we wouldn't have financial overcompensation, we wouldn't have an increase in school segregation, we wouldn't have more opportunities being provided to people that are already wealthy.
No, that's not
We wouldn't
true.
have seen like
I mean,
no change in grades because of this. If everything were
but we
operated
have seen
exactly
a
like you
change in
said, where
grades.
the
What are you
perfect where
talking
the
about?
market would but it's not because of the free school reform, it's because of the curriculum change.
I never made a claim that grades were going to get better because of free school load.
Yeah,
First of all, that's not
but we
something I
know that
said.
they fell because of free schooler.
No, because they fell because we had a bad national curriculum.
It just happened to be that it started falling
Yes,
just
because maybe when you
yeah.
have reforms
Okay.
within the school system, it comes with changes in the national curriculum.
Yeah, okay. It just the grades there was no change
Yeah,
in the
oh,
school
it
curriculum
it
for
just happened
literally
to be
decades
just happened
and our
to
grades
be
just happened to fall
it just
like 3
happened
years
to
after.
be, like when we passed
Yep.
this really big comprehensive education policy, when we changed a bunch of stuff,
Comprehensive
including
implies
national
that they actually
curriculum.
thought through it, but they clearly fucking didn't.
Well, they did thought through it. That doesn't mean that their thoughts were rational or led to good consequences. It still was comprehensive.
That was mostly meant as a zinger or a joke, but that's
Yeah, it
okay.
was really funny, bro.
I thought it
No,
was really
listen.
funny.
Okay, so it's really crazy how when you change a lot of different stuff within the education program, you change the way that schools are funded. Oh, you might have bad consequences.
You didn't change the curriculum.
Yes, you did, bro. Look at the curriculum changes in the 90s, my guy.
Okay. All right.
Like I don't.
We can go on
Okay.
to the
We can look at two. We can look at two data sets. Okay, listen. Immigration,
Yes.
wage subsidies. Completely agree with you.
Okay,
Right?
cool.
Okay. How would wage subsidies help immigrants?
It would help them get an initial integration to the labor market.
Okay. How?
Because business will be more incentivized to hire them.
So do you think we should do means testing wage subsidies to new Swedes?
Means test of wage subsidies. Yeah, to some extent, probably. Based on the research I've read from the OECD, it seems like it's probably a good idea. At least in the short term, it's probably a good idea. In the long term, get that shit out of here.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Like first, second generation immigrants, maybe third, fourth,
I don't
level
even
up,
know
probably
about
a bad
second, to
idea.
be honest, but yeah.
I think. Well, I
No,
mean, like a lot of the
probably
research.
second. It might be a good idea as
Yeah,
well. But once
because
I would defer to the
going
experts on
through.
this.
Yeah, I mean, like going through the research documents, like going through the studies and the research documents, second generation immigrants have problems in the labor markets as well.
Yeah,
So
I
it
mean
seems like
they do a fair bit better than the original ones, but yeah.
Yeah, they're
And
more
once again,
integrated.
I
They
would
go
say
through our
that
school
I
system,
know
better
I don't want
language.
to bring up the school thing again, but a lot of the reasons why the second generation is fucked is because of the segregated schools. But we
Yeah.
let's not move on to that anymore. Okay, so we agree with that. Okay, anything else on immigration?
Right. Okay. Public housing. You want to have like an increase in public housing. I want to have more market housing.
Okay. The reason why I want an increase in public housing, I fundamentally want it to be spread out because right now we have a big problem where a lot of immigrant populations are being concentrated within certain areas of Sweden. And
Yeah, I
because of
agree.
that, integration is fucked, ghettoization happens, and this is really bad. And I think that the best, and these people don't have a lot of money that a private market and private businesses can tap into. That's why I feel like it's on the onus to the government, especially because this will have long-term really good economic effects, among other things, to create public housing all across Sweden. So newly arrived people or people that are already here can be encouraged or can be can move towards all these different parts in Sweden, so that everyone is like spread out and there's like there's good access to opportunities and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd technically agree with you. I just wouldn't agree with public housing. I'd agree more with housing subsidies alongside a deregulation of housing markets. Alongside
Deregulation of housing markets.
Yeah, because we want to make it cheaper to build houses. Absolutely. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Like we want to increase the supply of housing, right? Deregulation is still needed to increase public housing.
Okay. What are some
Have you
examples
ever
of regulations you would like to roll back?
on public housing.
No, on the market housing.
Yeah, so basically things like land usage laws, zoning laws, the actual amount of like parts in the cities that you can actually build residential housing, the density of housing, the how tall housing can be, all those types of regulations I'd like for them to be curbed.
Do you think those are
These, yeah, these
major?
are the
Okay.
major reasons why housing is segregated. Yes, zoning is the major
I agree.
reason. Yes,
Zoning laws are fucked. Okay,
absolutely,
I agree with you. Zoning laws
exactly.
are fucked.
Land
Okay.
use laws,
I don't know how much
absolutely.
is that.
Yes.
Okay, cool. But the okay. So what incentive would a private, like you have a large range of like population of housing, which tends to be like low income, and
Right.
a lot of them tend to be unemployed.
Yeah.
So what benefit does a private company have to set up like housing within the like that is accessible to these people?
Yeah, private companies tend to build housing for cheaper than public buildings do. That's why a lot of public buildings are
Wait, public
contracted
buildings
out
are
to private
literally.
companies. That's no, they're built
Well,
by
it
private
depends.
companies.
Okay, we
They're
had the whole
contract. No, no,
fucking
no, 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 no.
the Karolinska at Stockholm. That contracting didn't go so fucking well. Okay,
Caroline's, bro. Oh my fucking god.
that was like it was the biggest fuck up like in Sweden,
Caroline,
like public
I agree
planning and
with
so
you.
it's like
Very
it was like
bad fuck
the
up.
seventh most
Very
expensive building
bad
in the
fuck up.
world, and it's like a hospital. Like I'm sorry,
Very
I
bad.
don't want private contracting of like publicly funded shit. Okay, because it.
Wait, are you for real? Almost all the public stuff we do is privately contracted. You know that, right? Like literally, almost all public projects are privately contracted. I
Yeah,
like honestly, I can't
obviously,
think of many that
I agree
aren't.
with you. There's different scales of public contracting, right? I assumed that you were going for a more type of public contracting where the private stakeholder has more influence on how it goes down. I don't know. Maybe that is not what you were going for.
What do you mean?
So like in the differences in, for example, because
No, no. Okay, so I'm
Karolinska
saying
was
okay.
practically like the government just saying, okay, you guys tell us what you need and we'll just give it
Yeah,
to
that
you.
was really poorly handled. Absolutely, they're shoving money towards a private corporation that was just like buying time. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
happens when
Fine.
you have a poorly.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what happens. Okay.
I don't necessarily disagree with having the government say like having different private companies bid to build a certain building.
Right. Also, there's just extensive academic research on the failures of rent controls, the failures of land usage,
Yeah,
land
rent
use
control is good. But
regulations.
hold on, okay,
Yeah,
some of the things you talk about zoning
true
laws
facts.
might fuck up the environmental. But beyond, okay,
Wait,
wait, what were we talking
how?
about? So okay,
How? Okay,
okay,
how is having
wait,
taller buildings bad for the environment?
sorry, no, it's not also,
How's
no,
having?
it's not only taller build. Well, that's fuck.
That's what
Okay,
zoning laws are for, my guy.
yeah, but it's not only height, right? There's things in like
Okay,
where you're allowed to build
do
and
you
stuff like
think
that as
that
well.
when I say
But,
we should reform zoning laws, do you think I mean we should build landfills next to kids' kindergartens?
uh, I've debated a
do,
lot of
you,
people that sound like you that unironically
do you
believe that.
really think that I was gonna say that, my
I'm
guy?
not sure. Okay, I didn't want to push it too
Okay,
hard,
so when
but
we're
I don't
having a
know.
conversation about like residential housing, yeah, I think it's a great idea if we just have like nuclear waste next to kindergartens.
Hey, there are some crazy motherfuckers that actually believe in that. Okay, I'm
Like
happy you don't.
who?
I'm happy you don't.
Like who?
Well, just like ANCAPs, just in general. But
Well, no, and dude, ANCAPs believe in like abolishing the state, my guy. That's not the same thing as like, oh, we should reform land use
well,
laws or zoning.
but there's different. Like that's their final goal, right? Is ANCAPs, but ANCAPs also push for a lot of policies now that moves towards their goal, and some of them involve the rolling back of building regulations that protect the environment.
I don't know, bro. Maybe, sure. Okay.
Wait, okay, that's true, but we're not talking about that. Okay, so I was gonna ask you. Okay, fine. Contracting the building of these things, I agree. That can be privately contracted, fine. But
Right.
should the housing be owned by a private entity or should it be owned by the government?
Yeah, I think that it should be a mix, but I think mainly private seems to work
Okay,
best.
so why does what incentive does a private owner have to make housing for incredibly like low income people?
What do you mean? Because there's a market for that. You can make a lot of money off that. You have the profit incentive price signals.
Do you think your people make the most amounts of money by building low income housing?
No, which is one of the reasons why zoning laws, a lot of zoning
That's
laws,
not the
right,
only
which don't
reason
allow
why
for
it's
high...
unprofitable.
No, it's absolutely a part of the same problem. So when you have zoning laws
it's
that don't...
probably a small incremental part of the problem. I don't
No,
think
no,
it's.
no, no,
I'm
absolutely.
gonna need a fat citation on this one.
I reject that assumption.
Okay, I'm gonna need a fat citation on that one.
Fat citation on what?
That
zoning laws
no, I want a citation on the fact that it's basically zoning laws being the only reason why private companies don't just build low income housing.
It's not the only reason, but I'm saying it's a very big reason. Yes, zoning laws lead rent control and zoning laws lead to
You cut out.
high density. Can you hear me?
Yeah, they lead to what?
They lead to private corporations investing into how do I say condominiums instead of high density, low cost apartments.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna need a site. This may be me being ignorant. That's perfectly possible, but I would like a citation for
Okay,
that.
sure. Oh my. Okay, sure.
You don't have to provide one now if you want to, but yeah. So the citation then would be that zoning is like the principal reason why private companies aren't just building like low income housing everywhere.
Yes,
But also
absolutely.
I would also make the argument that um, because fundamentally how markets work is they're going to try to extract as much money as possible from their consumers, right, while still retaining them as a customer.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I think it would be better for integration and to be able to get these people up on their feet initially and get them, like working within the economy if we try to minimize their costs as much as possible. And a pretty big
Yeah, I
part of a
agree.
cost would be rent. So by having it be publicly owned and having like no or even like minimal rent, like bare minimum rent, we can avoid a lot of that money and a lot of the cost for those newly arrived people, and it's going to be easier for them to integrate. And that's a
Okay,
benefit
but we
exclusive to
can
public
literally just
housing.
do the same thing through housing subsidies. Like we can
Um,
literally just do that through housing subsidies. Like I don't see why you couldn't.
we could if we wanted to, but then we could also spend that tax money on other things instead of just like constant subsidies for every
But the
rent.
point would be try to spend as little tax money as possible, right? The most
Yeah,
efficient
but yeah,
allocation
exactly.
of
But if,
resources.
if if the ownership of the property is like by the government, then they're not going to need to have like the same like constant like recurring costs as if it was owned by privately, because privately fundamentally like, it's there because it needs to make a profit. So you need constant like revenue generation from that entity. Otherwise, it becomes.
In a competitive market, right? Which
I would say it's
decreases
fair
rates of
to just like
profits.
take this to just like private ownership in general. While for when a publicly owned entity does not need to constantly generate money.
I mean, like, can you send me a citation on that?
Wait, I said
A
what do you need a
citation
citation
that
for?
citation that public housing is going to be like a cheaper in the long run than
I mean, that's one of the things that the
housing
OECD study.
subsidies.
Let me read you a point from the one of the chief studies I cited here. Hold on. Uh, housing. I've been dropping a little jingle there. So OECD, a quote from the 2016 study titled. Let me see what it's called. Working. Fuck. Can I go to the top page, please? Top page titled "Skills and Labor Market Integration of Immigrants and Their Children in Sweden." There's a section that reads, this is an excerpt from it. The challenges arising from immigration, insofar as labor markets go, is primarily caused by lack of housing, especially public housing. So this is one of the principal things that
Wait.
literally OECD
How does
recommends.
that prove? How does that prove? Right? How does that prove that public housing in the long run is going to be cheaper than having housing subsidies by private markets? That doesn't prove that.
I mean, it doesn't
That's
say
just saying that the
exactly,
avail.
but this is like one of the
No,
biggest
dude,
economic organizations in the world making a
no. The
policy
big
recommendation.
that is. Oh my god, dude. Do you understand how those two things are so fundamentally different? I think that it's like okay, it's like near the point of dishonesty to say that those two statements, like that quote by the OECD, is supporting the claim that public housing in the long run is going to be a cheaper, more fiscally like responsible way to ensure affordable housing to people than housing subsidies.
I'm saying that that's a recommendation, and I think that the OECD probably has some idea of what they're talking about.
Okay, but oh my god, dude. Okay, so instead of giving me an actual citation saying that public housing is actually leading to lower costs in the long run, do you think that we should just say, oh, in this one sentence, they
This
said
is
that
a
oh, the problem was
super.
a
I'm
lack
sorry.
of
No,
public
this is not.
housing?
This is a super comprehensive report that was published not too long ago.
You're giving me one sentence, and the
Do
sentence
you want me
says
to
a
read like the
lack
entire
of public
chapter,
housing.
or?
No, I'm saying that your evidence is one sentence that doesn't even say what I was like
Okay,
the
hold on. Labor
citation I was
integration,
asking for.
settlement. Okay, settlement. This is what we're looking for. Do we have? I can read you like part of that chapter if you'd like. I don't know. If that's what you'd like. Let's see
Is
here.
that chapter gonna is does that chapter give any evidence that in the long run that public housing is cheaper than like housing subsidies?
Fuck, this thing doesn't let me control F. I fucking hate it. Okay.
Because that was the specific claim I asked for.
54. Give me a second. Is it? Oh, okay. Chapter 2, settlement of immigrants here. Early settlement and long-term implications. The boldness of what are their key recommendations? Ah, fuck. Ah, this is a 200-page thing.
Okay. Okay. How about this, right? How about this, right? If you want to have better affordable housing that is built more organically, high density, high rise buildings, right? Oh my fucking gosh, shut the fuck up. How that wasn't towards you, sorry.
Are you sure?
How
No,
about you weren't even saying anything. How about we both agree we want to get rid of rent control, right? Economically consensus, terrible idea, right?
Oh yeah.
We want to reform zoning, right? So instead of having like public cities essentially saying, oh yeah, let's like have a very limited amount of residential areas, this has to be like purely for commercial or industrial areas, let's say that we open up a more diverse set of like actually integrating low income,
Okay,
high density zoning.
A lot of this has
right?
to do a lot of this has to go down to the very specific policy, because like I can hear what you're saying now, and I could agree with it, but I could also disagree with it, but just depending on how I interpret it.
How?
Because okay, so some degree of zoning is probably a good idea, right? Would you agree with
Yeah,
this?
obviously.
Okay,
Yeah, but I'm
yeah,
just saying that we
but
need to reform zoning so we
there's
can
so
have
much
more like high
yeah,
density housing.
the reform jag på stream. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Good night.
Okay. We got Rose dad there. Sorry, what were you saying?
God natt pappa, ha en trevlig kväll.
Yeah.
Va? What did you say?
What were you saying?
Okay. There's a
there's a lot of gray area when it comes to zoning.
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying abolish zoning. I'm saying reform zoning so we have more high density
but
housing.
You would need to what you mean by reform there is very important.
Yeah, which I was literally
and
explaining.
but it would be no, it would take far too long to like define exactly what you mean by reform there, because there's so much.
I was literally telling you what to reform.
Okay, yeah, say it again, and I can explain how I could interpret.
Do you know how zoning works?
Yes, I understand how zoning works. Say what exactly we're talking about.
Okay, so currently there's a set amount of land, right, that is allowed to be for high density housing, right?
Yep.
You have certain stretches of land, right, which only high density housing can be built, right? You've also heard of the problems with single family unit housing.
Yep.
Right? And that like takes lots of space.
Yep.
Right? If you were to reform zoning laws, saying that okay, X amount of area in the city, right? We can say that we can expand the amount of areas within the city, right? We can fulfill our goals of like having more diverse like areas of the city, low income, right? So we desegregate, right? We can say, okay, this X land that is currently being used to develop X, right?
Yeah,
this is currently zoned
those X's
as being
are
single
important.
family housing. No, I'm saying X as in, okay, if that is like an industrial location, right? We can reform that zoning. We can say that right there. We can say that that is no longer going to be considered an industrial area. We can say that this lot here is no longer going to be considered only allowed to be built for single family housing. We can say that this area in the city right here, which is currently being used to build a parking lot.
This means nothing to me, because I need to know what this
that's literally
what this means.
Policy position. Wait, what do you mean? That's literally how zoning works.
Look, yeah, I understand.
Do you not know how zoning
I don't
works?
disagree with that. This is how zoning works, but what you mean by like X land? I don't know what's nearby there. What location in the city doesn't have? What's the public transport options? Like things like this are very important, and there's no way you're going to be able to like explain exactly how this is going to work.
Okay, how do you think that zoning laws in municipalities are dealt with?
What do you mean by dealt with?
How do you think they're changed? Because they're changed all the time. How do you think they do it?
Probably through voting, or
no,
you have like a ministry.
How does
I don't know what this has
zoning
to do with what we're
commission?
talking about.
How does the zone? Because I'm telling you how to change it, and you're saying, "Oh, but we can't."
No, I understand. No, okay. How you change it?
How is it? How do you change it? Do you know how you change it? Right, you have a zoning commission, right? You have like an urban planning, commission, right?
Yeah.
They essentially have this map, right, which is like gets down to like what permits are being given out, right, depending on the geographical location, right?
Yeah.
Currently, a lot of areas, especially in the suburbs, right, which are zoned as being only for single-family housing, right?
Yes.
Yes, you can change that to say, okay, instead of having only Single family
Oh wait, so
housing.
that's your thing. Just change single family zoning to multi zoning.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
okay.
one
Well, there
part
we
of
go.
it. Absolutely.
Okay, well that makes sense. Okay.
Well, I don't know how you didn't understand that before.
I don't know. It may be a mix of me not understanding and your explanation being a bit weird, but we don't have to get into that. Okay. I
Okay,
mean
so
that's part
converting
of it, sure.
so yeah, sure. So converting industrial plots within the city, converting like parking lot spaces within the city, converting single family housing zoning,
Well, but
converting that to high density.
now there's a lot of, like, for example, some that depending on what the parking lot is, it may be, close to a really like popular
Yeah, I
workplace
mean
that
like
may need.
we're trying to
Yeah,
get rid of parking lots in the inner city.
yeah,
Right?
okay,
That's
but
already
it
a
would
goal we're
depend
trying to
on what
fulfill.
the parking lot is for. Like, for
Of
example,
course, this
where,
is all
yeah,
going to be
yeah, I
incredibly
understand. Yeah, I
regional,
understand. I
right?
understand.
But it's
That's all I wanted to. That's all I wanted to just say. That it's incredibly regional. And now we can move on.
that's literally all you wanted me to say.
That's all I wanted you to say.
So you said the all you know, I
wanted,
don't know about.
this is perfect. I love the answer you gave, changing a lot of the single family thing to multi-family thing, and then having like more expanding into other different types of zoning, having that be done more regionally based on the like flow of traffic or whatever the fuck in those areas. 100%. I'm on board.
Okay, I just don't understand why this wasn't even a problem because it's not like a dictator can just come in and change
Okay,
zoning
look,
laws.
I'm not gonna try to sound too condescending, but I like to think that I'm typically okay at understanding things, and this was not such a complicated thing. But it took me a while anyway.
But I don't understand how you didn't understand that then.
Okay, yeah, we don't have to get into that. Okay, so what we were talking about right before zoning laws, we were talking about houses. So if we get back to the thing I was talking about before, right? Why put an extra cost on the budgets of newly arrived immigrants? Why not have it be run, you know, publicly in a
Because
way
you
that's
can
going to
just
save
put
both the
housing
government,
subsidies, my
but
guy.
that's going to take more money in the long run, right?
No, it's not. You haven't proven that. I literally asked for a
Okay.
citation. You can give that to
We can
me.
talk about okay. So we have the running costs of operating a house. Okay, we agree that the building of it is not super important. Okay, because that can be privately done, that can be done publicly. We both agree on this, right? So the building is out of the way already, correct?
Right.
Okay, perfect. So now you have the running costs of those things. So things like utilities, damages, things like this. Those running costs would be the same in if it's publicly owned or if it's privately owned, correct?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, what
Because
ways would
the
it be
cost
different?
of that is a market price that would exist within a market, a competitive
Okay,
market
so okay,
environment.
fine. So if
One of the
anything, okay,
greatest things about markets is you have a competing firms
no,
competing
no, no,
against
no.
each other
I
for.
think we have different. I think we have different understand. I think I may have not phrased the question the best way then. So like the costs of, for example, the owner of that building to pay for things like utilities, for example, would be the same
Sure.
within these two, and damages would probably be the same, right?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So the running costs would be pretty much the same between the publicly and the privately owned ones.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So now we have two things where everything's literally a ceteris paribus except for the ownership of them. Now, in one of these, you need to pay the running costs, but also a profit because it is owned privately and it needs to generate a profit. In the public one, there is no profit that has to be generated. In the privately owned one, you have to generate some profit. So my argument then is that the ownership of the public one, the government would just have to pay the running costs. While if you were to subsidize the privately owned one, you would need to pay for the part of the subsidies as well as part of that profit that these people have to make, right? As well as offloading more costs to the inhabitants, which are newly arrived immigrants. So the running costs, like the per month costs, will be higher in a privately owned one because you need to make a profit compared to the publicly owned one.
I agree with you. Ceteris paribus. I agree with you.
Exactly. So then
Right, but we
why
don't live in it.
should
Yeah, but
we?
that's not an environment of ceteris paribus because it's not ceteris paribus. You're ignoring the entire aspect of market competition, which dictates everything.
Okay.
Right?
Can
You
you
can make
give
the
me one
same argument
example
with like
of market competition significantly affecting the situation I just provided?
yeah. I mean, like you can look at the you can wait. Are you saying that market competition doesn't lower prices? Is that the like
No,
argument you're
hold on.
making?
Say now you're moving it to another thing. I agree that it can change.
No, but okay.
Okay.
So I'm asking. Okay,
On what I just asked you, how would it be? How would it not be more? How would the running costs not be more expensive for the inhabitants or the government, which might be subsidizing it? How would that not be more expensive in the privately owned one than the publicly owned one?
right, because rent, right? So essentially rent. Okay. So okay. So one of the reasons why
Yes.
you have like costs of consumers, right,
Yeah. No,
change
no.
depending on the
I
structures of
wanted
the.
to use the vocabulary that is specific to this example.
But I have to use economic vocabulary to
Yeah,
to explain
but
economic concepts.
you can plug in words like renter, you can plug in utility, you can just plug that in, just so we don't stray too far off topic.
Okay, so when we talk about like when we have different firms competing in a market, right?
Yeah.
Right. You have different competing firms that compete after the renters seeking them, right?
Yes.
Right. Do you not understand how that would lower the rent if you were to have market competition in difference to a
But
non to
okay.
like in a ceteris
Yeah.
paribus
Yeah.
condition?
Yeah, I
Right?
agree with you. But would it ever lower it to at or no, sorry, would it ever lower it to at or below the minimum running costs of the apartment? No,
Probably not.
exactly. It would never do that. So then,
Right, but
if
then that
yeah, sure, I fully acknowledge the effect of markets on pricing of housing. But if we have this example right here, where one is owned publicly and one is owned privately, it is impossible for the cost of the publicly owned one to supersede that of the privately owned one, because the publicly owned one fundamentally does not have an extra cost added that needs to be made in profit, while the private one does. And even if it's a non-profit, then that's
because you're
exactly.
not taking into
And
consideration future building of housing.
okay, so now we're talking about future building of housing. So now we're not talking about
Yeah,
that
because
situation. Okay. So okay.
yeah, because that's literally
So
yeah, because that's
future
a
building of
yeah,
housing.
because that's
So how does
fundamental.
that play into this?
Right. So eventually, if you were to have like a short-term profit within the housing market, right, you're going to have a lot of increase, right, of private investment, shifting allocation of capital throughout society into increased housing, right, into increased spending of housing,
But this has to do
right?
with building of new housing, right? Which we already agreed on could be the same whether it's publicly or privately owned. This is something complete. This doesn't have to do with the running cost. This has to do with the cost of building. And we both agree that this can be done by private contractor. That's fine. But we're talking about the ownership of it.
Dude, I just fundamentally like I just don't know what you're saying at this point, my guy.
Okay, well that's unfortunate.
Okay. No, I just don't understand. I honestly don't understand the question you're actually asking.
Okay, so the question I'm asking
So
right
you're
now
saying
is
that in
if
the long
the
run, it's going to
goal
be
of this
cheaper for the
housing,
government through public housing rather than having housing subsidies? Is that what you're saying?
because because the person that privately owns that house is not going to want to run at a loss. And even if it's and maybe they will run it
Okay,
not
wait. So if the
maybe
government
they
wants
will
to run it at a loss,
a short-term loss, yes, because they will be
okay,
running
but
it
then
at a loss
okay,
because they will run it at a loss
but
either way, because they're
how is
running at a loss
societal
if it's
spending changed
subsidized.
then? And
Because
how is like
because then it's easier, because the key goal that what we're talking about is getting the immigrants integrated, and because they have to pay less in rent, they can use that capital that they would have spent on that into other things that can further their integration.
well, can you show me like any evidence to support that?
Okay, this makes sense to you completely logically, right?
I mean, like not really,
What
because
doesn't
it
make
just seems that you
sense?
can have like so when we're
You
talking
haven't been able to provide me something that doesn't make sense.
when we're taking into consideration like fiscal constraint of local governments, right? You have one scenario in which the local government has to pay for the
Okay,
construction of the entire
this is
building.
big government. This is federal.
Okay, sure. You're taking like the consideration of like the federal government having to pay for the construction of something,
Or it
right?
could, yeah, or it could be that, or it could be, yeah, or like privately contracted.
No, yeah, but they're still paying for it. They're paying a
Yeah,
private
they're
contract to
paid
do
for
it,
it.
right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. Okay. Do you think that in the long run, it's cheaper to pay for entire buildings to be set up, right? So to pay for the actual public building
Wait,
to
hold
be
on. You're
paid for?
discounting the effect of beautiful free market competition. It's gonna be pretty. That payment's gonna be pretty low. But anyway, keep going. That was a meme, by the way. You can go.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but sure, but they still have to pay for it one way or another, right?
Yeah, they do.
So
But
the federal budget would have to pay for the construction of public housing, right?
yep.
Yes, or they could pay for, or they could
And
pay
that's a
partially,
short
or they
term
could pay, or they
investment for long term gain.
no,
And
that is a long. How's that a short term investment? That's a long
because
term
no,
investment.
the short term investment is upfront cost of building the building, because once the building already exists, then it wouldn't have like it wouldn't be like a fundamental difference between.
Exactly. So I need you to logically or like empirically prove
Yeah.
to me that the government skipping the cost. Oh, no. Okay. So bearing that cost
Yeah.
of building public housing is going
Yeah.
to be lesser than giving partial rent subsidies to people living in privately owned condominiums. Do you understand that's different,
Yes,
right?
and
So in one scenario, the government doesn't pay for the extra cost of actually building public housing, right? And they only pay for, let's say, like a 70% or 80% or like 60% or whatever, right? You can do like a means test. You can have a means tested
I want
program,
that to be as close to
right? Through rent.
zero as possible, because the point is to make it easier for the immigrants to then integrate.
No. That the government pays 60 or 70 or whatever percent of the rent.
Um,
So you would want it to be as close to 100% as possible.
yeah, probably, because we want to alleviate as much stress from the
Yeah,
immigrants as possible.
exactly.
Because
But we need,
because
but
this is
we
what I
don't want
mean.
to.
Because the short term investment here in the immigrants integration is going to lead to long economic benefits from them being able to enter the workforce sooner and to attain a higher quality of education
Exactly, but
and
everything is a
position.
cost benefit. But everything is a cost benefit analysis. We still want to like save where we can, right? We can both agree on that.
Yeah, probably.
Right, sure. So can you prove to me that the cost incurred on the federal government or local government, whatever, right,
Mm.
being actually having to pay for the construction of these public houses, right, is going to be in the short run cheaper than the government just paying for the partial, like largely or like lesser of like actual rent subsidies, right? So you have a scenario in which they don't. You have a scenario in which they build all the public housing, paying for it directly for the construction
Yeah.
themselves, or in another scenario where like they pay not for the construction at all, that is through private capital investment,
Yeah.
and you only pay for rent, like a partial like rent subsidy. Can you prove to me that one is cheaper than the other?
So you would need empirical evidence in this situation, right?
No,
Let's
just
do with logic.
logically,
Well, no,
get
because
me
we
through
can't
it.
say it logically, because I could say then that, okay, well, short term, the government might be running at like a deficit in the comparison to the two malls, but long term, because you just said you didn't like rent control, right? So I mean, technically, right, that private firm can sort of price the rent at kind of wherever they want, right?
Right, but they exist in a competitive environment, so that's a bad argument.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, like Apple can
well,
charge $3,000 for an iPhone, but they wouldn't be able to sell anything, right?
yeah, sure,
So,
but
so
the
why bring
fundamental
that
goal
up?
here is that the government isn't trying to get it at X price for the citizens. If the government wanted, there would be a big problem with, like, let's say the government decided that everybody should have an iPhone, right? And then the government saying that everybody should have an iPhone that costs $50, okay? Um, Now, given that, what's stopping like the private firm from upping its prices then, if you know that the government is going to pay whatever the difference is between $25 and where they're going to price it?
Because you can have programs like Section 8 housing within America where you can actually have like deals like, okay, you can only give those rent subsidies to housing that costs under a certain point. That's not a rent control, that's a subsidy for low income housing. That's a means tested program.
If we do the Section 8 housing, when that's built.
Like not exactly Section 8 housing, that is
Yeah.
just one
I
specific element within Section 8 housing.
I could still say then that in the long term, them having to pay, like, for the part of the rent, as well as whatever profit is added from that, which probably is gonna have to be significant, right? Because the higher the upfront cost, typically the higher the like the monthly profit has to be for it to be able to compensate for it, right? So if a private business makes a big upfront cost in building these, where that asset is not generating any capital, chances are that then, once it can actually begin generating capital, they will have a pretty significant profit margin at that point in time to compensate for that upfront cost that they've made. Because fundamentally,
It really no, it really depends. It
no,
really
because
depends.
that asset fundamentally has to first of all make up for the initial investment, had to make up for the time spent in like until they make up for the initial investment,
Okay,
and
but
then
this entirely depends on the structure of the market.
and then the profit as well on top of that.
It entirely depends on the structure of the market.
Okay.
So in like an oligo so in a market structure like a monopoly or an oligopoly, sure. But in a market structure closer to PCM or a monopolistic competition, then no. It entirely depends on those. It entirely depends on how competitive the housing market is, right? And we've seen in places like Houston where they've actually like largely reformed zoning, land usage, very highly competitive, which is why a high density city like Houston has far lower rent than a place like New York or Los Angeles, San Francisco,
So we're
Oakland, blah
we're
blah
talking
blah.
about different things now. So
How? No, you're talking about incurring. You're talking about like the
but
profitability of firms, right?
yeah, when a firm makes a big upfront investment, they, unless you want to
They
run like
expect to
on a
make a
loss for,
profit.
yeah, exactly. And
Exactly.
chances
But
are that
yours,
because it's the upfront investment, and then there is the entire like building process, and then there is
yeah, of
when you
course.
can start making, like, that's a long time where you run on a deficit and on a loss. So
Yeah, it's a
typically,
long-term investment.
so
Yeah.
it's, yeah, so typically the higher the upfront costs are and the longer you need to run without making any revenue, the higher or the more drastic the profit generation has to be once you can actually start generating profit. Do
No,
you agree?
not that's not true. No.
Really?
Yeah, it's really not. We just that's just empirically unfounded. Yeah.
Wait, why would that
Because you
not
can
be so?
have okay, so just like friendly, like I'm not trying to get you, right? But
Oh, okay. If
essentially
you have
you can
like a
have a
monopolized, and then they can run like Walmart, they can run like afford to run on a deficit for a while they
no,
can
yeah, yeah,
compete.
so that's why I brought up the different structures of the market,
Okay,
right?
cool. Yeah,
Because you can
fantastic.
yeah, so
So
it's like
monopolistic.
yeah.
Okay, fine. Let's say we
Yeah,
have monopolistic competition then. Okay, then we
sure.
get to the point where they can afford to run on a deficit for a while, and then
Yeah.
they monopolistic competition, which means that you have practically like monopolies, which most likely are going to designate themselves to
What?
different areas of
That's not what
Sweden.
a that's no, that's an oligopoly. That's not what monopolistic competition is. You go IB, don't you?
I do go heavy.
Do you take economics?
Yeah, I took microeconomics, but it was like the first thing I took a year and a half ago.
Did you take market structures?
That was part of the microeconomics unit.
Okay, that's not what monopolistic
Hold
competition
on,
is.
monopolistic competition. Imperfect such as many producers can be interested, but selling products that are differentiated from one another has a proper subsidy. Low income housing is a product that is differentiated enough that there aren't perfect substitutes. Really,
Yes, absolutely. Because
low
you
income
you have
housing.
yeah, geographical location. Absolutely. That's just like housing economics. Yeah. So that's the difference between like let's say like milk, right? Milk is pretty much you can't really tell the difference. You can take into consideration like lactose free milk, blah blah blah, right? But we consider like agricultural goods to be mainly like perfectly competitive markets, right? We take in low income housing. It also depends on like other factors like geographical locations, like different like
Yeah.
utilities
So
provided.
yeah,
Yeah,
but the utilities.
absolutely.
Okay. How do I phrase this in the best way? Um.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't. You don't have to be condescending because like that's literally just how it
Yeah.
works.
Don't worry. When it comes to being condescending in the conversation, I don't think I have the monopoly on that one. Okay. Um. Let's see here. Okay. Why is it a monopolistic competition? Okay.
I
So
agree. It feels more like a oligopoly.
do you think so? Okay. Well. Whatever.
Yeah, because it's not just one; it's two of us, right?
Yeah, I know. I understand what oligopoly is, but I would disagree with that characterization. But anyway. Um. Okay. But the difference there is that when you provide a product, right, in a monopolist, fucking competitive monopoly. No, what's the fucking word? Competitive monopoly?
Monopolistic
Monopolistic
competition.
competition. For fuck's sake, these words. When you provide a service like that, then none of it is inherently tied to like land ownership or things like that. Whereas fundamentally, like if you need to, for example, like go to a specific school, or you want to live close to your family, or you want to do like any X, Y, and Z things, that ties you intrinsically to one of these providers. Whereas, for example, iPhone is not a good example at all. But if you have like another sort of product where you have a whole range of like differentiated, like yeah, different firms consuming that have it like a different product, you're not being like coerced by, like, certainly to like advertising and stuff like that, but there isn't any like firm pressure that coerces you towards having to pick one choice over another.
Yeah,
Whereas
you're
when
just
it
making an argument that this is a monopolistic
No, I'm
competition and
saying that
these are
it's not
not
a monopolistic.
indistinguishable
I'm saying
goods.
it's not a monopolistic competition because you don't really
You're
have the
saying that
same
what? It's a
ability.
monopoly?
So no, I'm saying it's probably going to end up being an oligopoly
It's really not though.
because you're going to have the biggest firm, which is going to be able to front that long, that big upfront investment, that short-term investment. Because like we both agreed, right? We would see this because you rejected my idea of them running at a deficit in the short term and then trying to make that back really quickly once they can start making profit. You rejected that. You said that okay, chances are you're going to have like a big business that is going to be able to take that upfront cost, right? Um, and then be able to start making profit. That implies that that business already has a lot of market share and has a lot of like Yeah, financial
Not
backing.
necessarily high market share, just lots of capital investment. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, lots of capital investment.
Right.
Most of the time that correlates pretty heavily with high market share though. But
No,
now
not
are you going to tell
necessarily.
me that high capital doesn't correlate with
No,
with
it
high market
correlates, but
share?
you're trying to make it a lot more than just correlation.
Okay. Um,
I
so
shouldn't pre-assume
so
your
okay.
positions, but go ahead.
So in that situation then, where you will most likely have a larger business, which can take the upfront cost, which is most likely going to have a lot of capital and is going to have to have to have that capital generated through some other means, which a lot of the time tends to be other market share. What's going to happen at that point is that, okay, what if they run on this for a while and then they say, you know what, we're going to slowly start increasing our profits, um, like the profit margin that we want the government to pay, and like what does the government do in that
Yeah.
situation?
What do you mean what the government does?
So let's say that there is this big business that has built this house and that is providing it to a newly arrived immigrant family, and then for the first like year or something, they demand
Wait,
a
you don't have to raise rents to create profit, right?
well, you don't have to, but it's a pretty damn good way of doing it. Um, so
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're going to because rents are still set in a
yeah,
competitive
I know,
market, my guy.
but that's a thing because I'm rejecting it that this is going to be a perfectly competitive market because
I'm not
housing.
saying it's
No,
perfectly
not per.
competitive.
Okay,
I'm
sorry,
saying it's
competitive market. Okay, because
right.
because fundamentally, like when it comes to things like housing, that is intrinsically tied to something like a non-fluid asset like land and like infrastructure and stuff like this. You're not going to be able to have that type of competition. So let's say that this big business runs at making a profit like that asks for a profit from the government that the government can pay, at that point. But then after 1 year, when the family's been living in this place for a fairly long period of time, chances are most of the housing around that is also going to be owned by that business. They decide, hey, you know what, we're going to raise the amount of profit we want by 20%. What's to stop them?
Okay. To stop them is like, dude, like, okay. It's the same reason why any like how to say it's the same reason why any firm, right, isn't just okay.
No, no,
Technically,
no, no, that's
any
not true.
firm
That's not true.
literally
Because
allow.
no, that's not true. Because if it's
Can
like
you
if
let
if
me
it's with
answer?
yeah, but I know the answer you're gonna give is gonna be garbage.
What is
But
the answer?
the chances are going to be okay. You were just about to ask me like the same reason why any firm can't just like raise their prices for an arbitrary reason, right? Was that what you were going to say?
Right.
Okay, and the reason for that
It was
being
gonna
is
be
that
more than that, but sure.
okay, and the main reason for that is because they can just go to a substitute product, correct?
Okay, no, but we're talking specifically about like like housing for immigration, right?
Exactly.
And as I stated before, that subsidy would only be given out to housing
Okay,
under a certain cost,
so
right?
I'm going to ask you. Okay, I'm going to ask you once again. They decide that they want to raise their prices by 20%. What does the government do?
Exactly,
What do the immigrants do? What do they do?
dude. Wait. Did you not just hear my last sentence?
Wait, go for it again.
If they're not going to
What's
give if they're not going to give the rent subsidy under a certain point, right? And if the firm therefore says, okay, we're going to raise like prices by 20%,
Mhm.
right? The
Yep.
government's just like, okay, we're no longer going to give rent subsidies to that business. That firm is no longer going to have any incentive to actually do that.
Okay, what's going to happen to the
If that
immigrant
firm
family
is
that's living there?
okay, no, but the firm won't do that because then they would literally lose their funding because the immigrant family is not going to be able to pay rent because they're
Well, it
dependent on government
depends. They may
subsidies.
be able to pay the rent.
Okay, but they
What if they
What
modify
if
the
they
rent
but wait if they're
based on the level of integration for the immigrants, or based on how much money they start making?
okay, but then that's a good thing though. In the long run, we want integrated families to be able to pay their own rent. We don't
Yeah,
want to keep these people in public housing for the rest of their
but
life.
we don't
If you're saying that you're gonna
we don't
if
want
you're
to bring
saying
the
that they're gonna
immigrants
be
from being like literally like fucking like far gone away from being able to like properly afford like housing and being able to integrate it to they get to the level where they just have like they're just getting integrated, they are right now just making like disposable income, things they can save on, and just at that stage, just when they're about to break and maybe enter like the middle class or stuff like that, that's when the business is like, haha, fuck you.
you're saying that middle class people can't pay rent?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if because you're already signed to that family's already living in this house, right? So at that point,
Contracts only last a year. That reform would run on before that.
but then there's we're gonna go into
Rent
this is
housing,
gonna
dude.
become the
Okay,
just move
first of all,
debate. This is gonna become the just move debate. Oh no no. Um. Okay, so at that point, when the immigrant family begins making bread, okay, and they're beginning to get integrated. They're beginning to make disposable income. They're beginning to like develop, to integrate properly and stuff like that. At that point, the what's it called, the private company decides to raise their rent to a point where the government is no longer willing to pay, but the people living there just barely can.
You're presupposing so many things, my guy.
What am I presupposing?
You're presupposing that they're going to raise rents above like the government's willing to pay, and that somehow the company knows that these people are willing to pay that much money.
Well, this is like publicly accessible. Like, I mean, it's either that they have to start paying that, or they have to front the massive like cost that comes with moving. With chances are that, first of all, like we established previously, this company may already own a lot of the market share within that community, and then there is, like I said,
I never agree to that.
Do you really not?
Yeah, I really don't know. I really don't think that it's like we have like monopolization of like cities.
But we just
when it comes to like construction businesses.
but
Yeah, I
we
really
just
don't agree.
but we just agreed that the company that runs this is gonna be a company that's big enough to be able to afford
Yeah, but
that
that doesn't
massive
mean
upfront
it's
cost.
It doesn't mean it's monopolistic though. Having big companies, right, that are able to like set up large capital, like start investment, doesn't mean that they're gonna be like having monopolistic power, right? And then having large shares of market share in this industry is not the same thing as being monopolistic or oligopolistic. No, you can have like 7 different competitors, right,
Yeah,
that
but
have
the issue is
really large.
you cannot bring this into just general market economics and how that works, right?
I'm
Because
not. We can
yes,
literally just
no, but
look
that's
at
what you're
the.
doing. Because like with most things, you can just say, "Fuck it, I'm not buying your
Can you
product anymore.
Can
I'm
you
gonna buy
prove?
this
Okay,
product."
so you're making the positive
But
claim
when
that
you know
housing
your
markets.
neighbors,
You're making
when
the
you
positive
integrate
claim.
with your education systems,
You're
when
making
you
the
have like
positive
people like
claim
around
that
your daily life, with you have a social
that the
net,
market
social
for housing
systems.
is going to be monopolistic or oligopolistic. Do you have any evidence to support that? You're making the positive claim. Do you have any evidence to support that?
Well, we don't have any evidence because we don't have a society. We don't live in a Sweden in which the government is ready to offer these
No.
massive
You're making that.
subsidies.
You're making the claim
Can
that
you prove to
housing
me that that's
markets
not going to
are.
be the case?
You're making the positive case.
We're both discussing a hypothetical.
Okay, you know what? Okay, let's both do research right now. Let's go on Google. Okay, let's look at what the market structure is for low
Well,
income
we
construction
can't.
companies.
But this is not the same thing.
How is it not? I'm asking you for the market
Okay,
structure of low income
because
housing
there's a
construction
difference between
companies.
low income housing and no income housing, practically, and unemployed housing.
Oh my god, dude.
And
Dude, but it's the same basic principle.
labor integrated housing, and within the
What is
Sweden's
labor integrated housing?
well, the housing that like different like housing between people who may not be like integrated into the labor market already, have like job positions lined up or have a
That's
history of being employed.
irrelevant when we're talking about market structure. It literally is
That's
irrelevant.
not irrelevant to your ability to get a house.
That's not that's not oh my god, dude.
Because
Okay, I'm sorry I'm getting upset. I'm
most
actually sorry I'm getting upset. But you understand like your ability to get a house in like a labor integrated housing like market isn't like relevant to the conversation of the structure of markets when it comes to housing of low income neighborhoods. Like that's relevant to the debate, but that's not relevant to the market structure.
Okay, so do you think that looking at low income housing and the companies that own them is the same as looking at, because you have differences, for example, like let's say like you look at the US, for example, in US, there are like 7 vacant homes for every homeless person in the US. There's a
Right.
very, very different situation when it comes to, for example, just the state of the housing market in the US compared to how it is in Sweden. There's also a massive difference in the state of the people that we're talking about housing between Sweden and the US. In the US, chances are you're not going to have language barriers, you're not going to have cultural barriers, you're not going to have like, the same level of employment barriers that you may have in Sweden, for example. So it's going to be very, very, very difficult for you to be able to find research that conclusively will say one thing or the other. Because how I have felt this conversation has gone is that
Okay, so how about
hold on,
we
can
come up
I'm
from a
just gonna finish this.
neutral.
I see just like an extra 5 to 10 seconds. Is that we start discussing a model, and we start posing questions, and we start going down the logical train, and we go chipping down on it, and then we get to a point where we're discussing this hypothetical, and you just say, let's look at some like empirical data when we already have built this like hypothetical situation which has not existed anywhere else, and there's nothing really comparable to it, and we're right now just using like economic theory and just our general understanding of how the country works to be able to reach this conclusion.
Okay, do you want to go on purely economic theory then?
That's kind of where we're going at right now, right?
Okay, so do you want to like no empirics, just economic theory? Do you want to go there?
Well, we're discussing, okay, you don't have to throw out these labels. Okay, so the
What
reason why.
labels? I'm using
Wait,
the
wait,
same words you did.
at what point did you begin? Saying that we should look at that? Okay, right. Because I characterize it by saying that okay, if a company is going to be able
Wait,
to
you
afford to run on the massive short-term loss of building a place and waiting for like those
right.
people to move in, chances are they're going to be a big wealthy company that's going to have like a lot of market share, especially within that area. And can you, with economic theory, disprove that?
I can't disprove that, but you're pre-assuming you're pre-assuming, right, that they're gonna have like a large enough market, or like, okay, so what do you mean by large market share? Like what percentage?
I don't know what exact percentage, but
Okay,
enough.
so okay, I'm not saying like, oh, 12%, but I'm saying like, okay, do
I
you
mean,
think
that's
that
kind
it's
of what
fair
you're
to
saying.
say? No, I'm not saying you're saying that, but do you think it's fair to say that they're gonna have 100% or closer to 20%? Like, what do you mean by a lot of market share?
A market share that is significant enough that there will be a very large degree of like sacrifice or discomfort or economic peril that the person who lived in the house would have to go through in order to participate in another in housing provided by another business.
Okay, so would it be closer to 80% or 20%? Like how many competitors do you think that would be in the housing market?
I
Because that is incredibly relevant to the conversation. Because if you're pre-assuming the situation in which you have like 90% market share of one company, then yeah, probably. We've seen empirically that in monopolistic like public utilities, right, state-owned enterprises do way better,
okay.
right? But
So
if we're going to
okay.
assume that we have like a housing market and we have like the market share of large companies, let's say like 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%,
But
or if you have something closer to like, oh, we have like 17% market share spread out by like 7 different
okay,
competitors,
you,
then I
you
would
should
start
know
to
that
say
if we're
that
discussing economic theory, like precise
yeah, this is
percentages,
economic theory. This is economic theory. I'm not talking
precise
like you can still talk about
percentages.
no, percentages are still part of economic theory, my
Yeah,
guy.
of course,
Like
percentages, but not like it's not like economic theory. Okay, like when a business takes up this. Okay, there's nothing in economic theory such as like when something takes like a big upfront cost of constructing a building or something. The only way that they'll be able to not have to raise their rent higher is if they have a market share that is higher than X percentage. That's like no.
no, it actually is though. It's called theory of the firm. You should have learned that if you continued IB
No,
economics.
theory of the firm is taught in business and management. I don't think you need to teach me about
theory of the
microeconomics.
firm theory of the firm is theory of the firm from an economic theory is taught in microeconomics in year 1 and 2.
All right.
In higher level economics, my guy.
All right. Did you take IB?
Yeah, I took IB.
Did you take economics?
I took HL economics, yeah.
Nice.
2 years.
I'm
And I
on
wrote
HL
my extended
economics,
essay
but the
on
fucking
economics, yeah.
diagrams are fucking disgusting.
Diagrams are wait, are you more of like, oh, I don't like math kind of guy?
I
Do you
don't
take
love it.
studies? You're a studies kid, aren't you?
I'm applications and interpretations.
Is that oh fuck right? There's like 4 different ones now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, oh yeah, but you okay? So you are a studies kid
Um,
because
kind of. So
application and
I'm looking
interpretation
at
is
right
pretty much
now
like the
the
studies.
section 1 of microeconomics. We have demand and supply, market equilibrium, market efficiency, elasticities, indirect
It's
taxes, subsidies,
it's
price
HL
controls.
microeconomics. You
Yeah,
theory of the firm.
I take HL. There's demand and supply, market equilibrium, elasticities, indirect taxes, subsidies, and price controls, cost, revenues, and profits, perfect competition, monopoly, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, price discrimination, and market failure.
Yes.
Not theory of the firm.
Literally Google IB theory of the firm.
Okay. Well, we don't have to discuss the curriculum now. I just
Why
opened my
you brought
booklet.
it up?
No, I think you brought up theory of the firm.
No, you were trying to disprove the fact that theory of the firm was a part of the curriculum.
I mean, I opened
You
my booklet. I don't care enough about this, right? Can we just okay? Can we get back to the thing we're discussing?
okay, sure, right. No, I'm saying okay. Even though like if you don't want to talk about percentages for some reason, it's still incredibly important to dictate the possibility of future like actions of a corporation depending on how much market share they have.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna ask one final question, and then I might wrap this up depending on the answer to this. Do you think it's likely or unlikely that a company that can bear the upfront cost of the short-term investment and the short-term costs of building housing and waiting for somebody to move in, do you think it's likely that they probably have a lot of market share as well?
I mean, like, not necessarily. Like, it would really depend. Like, it's such a complex question. Like, both yes and no.
Okay.
Like, like I don't under like. Why do you think it's like that simple?
Um, this feels like
So
it's
I can give you an example for that, right? So in
Okay.
economic theory, right, you can say like the price can like
But
okay, so basically what you're
okay,
asking
I'll
me
give you some more context. Okay, given that we already know that there is a housing shortage in Sweden, and that even the public programs aren't good enough, and that we have a large, what's it called, like, yeah, sort of private housing, not lobby, but there's a big like a financial interest group, um, that cares about that industry and passing policies that want to promote the growth of that industry. Given those things, do you think it's likely or do you think it's unlikely that that company is going to have a lot of market share as well?
it depends on the city. In my city, low market share. In other cities, like okay, so like labor market
Okay, fine, fine,
monopsony.
fine. Okay, let's say in your city, fine, it might be low, but in a lot of places, I'm not saying I'm not giving a percentage. I'm just in a lot of places
In
that's
okay,
not the
how about this?
case.
How about this? In big cities, no. In small cities, yes.
Okay, fine. So where do you think? Okay. So let's work on this assumption. Okay, so then you would agree then that in not like all the cities that aren't big cities, it is likely that the company that does this is going to have a large market share as well
In small cities or big cities.
in small cities.
How do you define large market share?
Can we not work with this? Do we really need
No,
to
no,
be this
I really
uncharitable?
like I no, no, I really can't because like for example, when I hear large market share, right? It can either be 25%, that's quite a large market share, right? It can also be 80%. And that's a really big difference,
Okay.
right? And that really affects the way that private corporation
Okay.
prices.
Let's say that there are maybe like let's say there are in between 1 and 3.
Okay,
Um
yeah, that's very oligopolistic. Yeah, they're going to be very likely to raise rents. Absolutely.
okay, perfect. So then, because they're going to be likely to raise rents, why should the government subsidize something that is most likely going to end up
Exactly. In
being
that, if you're going to presume that situation, I agree with you. It'd
if
probably be more expensive to
I'm
do
gonna
so.
if I'm gonna presume that this is taking place
Yeah,
in a
if
small
if you
city.
presume that, yeah, if you presume that situation, yeah, it's probably going to be more expensive.
Okay,
Yeah.
but okay. So what would you think the market share? What's your estimate for what the market share would be in a small city?
No, in a small city, I can
Give me the
definitely
situation
see
right
the
now.
argument. In a small cities, I can definitely see the argument for increased public housing being a
Okay.
cheaper alternative. Yeah, definitely.
So then you would see that that it's probably likely that there's going to be maybe like 1 to 3, maybe like at
In a
max
very small city, yeah,
in very small
definitely.
cities. Okay,
Because like
perfect.
I've already
Okay,
okay, so
okay,
there's like kind of a small city right on the outskirts of the city I live in, Mundal,
yeah,
right? But they have like I can name you like 10 different like construction companies there, right? That all have different like how to say neighborhoods and stuff, right?
yeah,
But then like there's even more in like the bigger city which I live in, Göteborg, right?
yes.
But then if you're gonna take some like really small town, like I don't know, Örebro, I don't know, like
Is Örebro a small
Skövde.
town?
I mean, like I think it's pretty small. I don't know how small it is. I'm pretty sure it's pretty small compared to like Göteborg, Stockholm, Malmö.
155,000 people. That's
Yeah, that's pretty fucking small, bro. I'm
you
not
think
gonna
so
lie.
compared to okay, I don't know.
I'm like compared
Swedish
to
geography is
Stockholm and
garbage.
Gothenburg and
Yeah,
Malmö.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
but
like
compared to the big three, but yeah,
yeah. If you're gonna have like a smaller city,
yeah.
that's different. Absolutely. I mean, like
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect,
yeah.
perfect. Yeah, one
So
hundred
it's
percent. Okay,
really
we're on the
contextual.
same page. We're on the same page. Okay, so
Okay, so you agree that in bigger cities,
I'll
there's
grant.
gonna be a
Okay, I don't necessarily agree with it, but for the purpose of this discussion, I will 100% grant you that there is no oligopoly or monopoly happening in the big cities. Okay, I will
great,
100% grant
amazing,
you that. Fantastic. Okay, so
amazing,
amazing. Okay, so then,
amazing.
so
Do you love rent control?
I no fucking control. Okay, all my homies have control. Okay, so fantastic. Okay, okay, okay. And now I need to carefully navigate to my conclusion without stepping on the trip mines that lead to a dialogue tree here. Okay, how do I do this? Okay, so if we want to find, okay, you would typically agree that having a large, like unanimous federal plan for combating a domestic issue is going to be more effective the simpler it is. Would you agree with
Um.
that?
Oh my god, that's so contextual.
I know. That has to do with like just like likelihoods.
Uh, ceteris paribus, more likely,
Okay,
more of the time.
more likely. Okay, perfect. So right now we have we have established that in a, I'm going to say, significant portion of the cases where we need to build public housing, chances are that the private company is going to raise the amount they want in profits in the long run, and is thus going to incur a larger cost on the government in the long term than if it was completely publicly owned, and we did not have to worry about the effect of profit on the amount of money the government had to pay. So, given this situation, why should we not just say, blanket statement, we're taking a big federal initiative to build, probably could be privately contracted, could not be, to build public housing that is owned by the government, that is rented out towards newly arrived immigrants, and that maybe we can see slight price increases over a long period of time that go in tandem with the amount of money they were making, not to make a profit, but just to slightly, like, to further minimize the loss the government is making, which is coupled already on the economic stimulus you're going to get of them integrating to the workforce, and have that be a small portion of the money that they need to spend on, like, utilities and like minimal subsistence things, that they have more money than to spend on other things like integrating effectively into their economy, and all the other things that they need to do to effectively integrate into their economy.
Presuming a uncompetitive housing market,
No,
presuming
no, no,
a
no, no.
small city,
Even if
presume
no, even if we do the exact world that you lived in, where in the big cities, this
right.
is not the case, but in the small cities, chances are it is going to be the case. So why should
No,
we
no,
not
no, no,
make
no.
it?
That's what I was about to say. That's literally what I was about to say. I was saying, presuming these things, I would agree with you
Okay.
that an expansion of public housing is better.
Okay.
Right? Presuming you have an uncompetitive marketplace.
But we did agree that it's more likely, it's likely for this to be the case in small towns. It is likely for there to be monopolies or oligopolies in small
Yeah,
towns.
no. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So therefore, I'm saying in small cities,
Yeah.
if this is the case, if it is
Yes.
more likely, right? Some cities might not be, some cities might definitely be, but let's
Okay.
say that's the majority of the case, right?
Okay.
I'm saying to you here, an expansion of public housing, probably a good idea, right?
Okay.
State-owned
Perfect. Okay.
enterprises tend to be more efficient in places with uncompetitive markets,
Okay.
right? This
Okay.
is why
Perfect.
public utilities,
Yeah.
like natural monopolies,
Yes.
tend to be better under state control,
Okay. Perfect.
right?
Okay. Okay.
Presuming a different world in which that's not the case, in which you have a different market structure of housing, in which you have a competitive housing market, in which you actually have more expansion and capital investment into private low-income housing, right?
Yep.
An expansion of public housing probably be more expensive.
Okay.
More expensive in the long run.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So we can.
Can
take
you
this
agree to that?
Yes. Okay. We can take this by
Okay,
the,
great.
wait,
Amazing.
okay.
We agree.
We can take this by the minimum thing. So you would agree that right now we probably should have fully public housing in a lot of small cities in Sweden.
Wait, when you say fully public, what do you mean by that?
I mean like owned publicly, owned by the government.
Do you mean that we should just be like expropriating private housing, or what do you
No,
mean?
I mean built then, maybe privately contracted, and then having that be owned by the government
Well,
and
I don't think we should. Well, I
leased
don't
to.
think. Well, I don't think we should stop private companies from trying to invest in small cities. Absolutely not. But I
Okay.
think that we should probably have an expansion of public. Sure.
Okay, so perfect. So we then agree that in the vast majority of small cities, we probably should have public housing programs.
Yeah. I mean, like the problem with like small cities, right, is that their populations are
Wait,
decreasing. So increase. What?
yes, the answer to that question is yes, right?
Yeah. No. I'm on the same page as you. I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, 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 perfect. That's the first. Okay, that's the minimum
Okay.
thing. So we agree that we need to have like large federal public housing initiatives in the vast majority
In
land mass,
places
like
where it would be cheaper to do so. Yeah, I
exactly,
agree. Yeah,
which
absolutely. Yep.
most of the like places in Sweden are kind of small cities, right? Like if you counted
Yeah, but like, most of the
if you counted
geographical places, yeah,
yeah,
but like most
if
of the population, no.
um hold on, if you counted like Örebro with like 200,000 people as a small city,
Well, I thought that Örebro was way smaller. 200,000 is like if we can look at like there's probably like quite a competitive housing market in Örebro, but I'm thinking more places like I don't know what's a small city in Sweden. Like I don't know places in Norrland, places in Skåne, Småland.
Mhm.
Probably, yeah. There, I could agree. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Wonderful.
We
Okay.
would obviously, it wouldn't just be like, oh, small versus big. It would be like, there might be a big city with a very uncompetitive housing market, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it could
So
be
it would be competitive versus uncompetitive,
yes.
right?
Okay.
We can agree on
okay.
that.
We can agree that absolutely we should make an analysis of what cities like would be just a unilateral good to do
Yeah, yeah,
this. Okay.
100%. Okay,
Perfect.
I
Okay.
hope you
Perfect.
know I'm not a fucking
Okay.
ANCAP. Like, I just want like we're
Okay.
both. Are you utilitarian?
Yes, but yeah, I'm not
We're
gonna
both
lie. I'm
utilitarian
not gonna
here.
lie. I was for a second there. I was worried. Okay, but okay,
Of what?
perfect. Of you being an uncap. Okay, but we're fine now. We're all good. We're Gucci.
Oh
Okay,
my fucking
we're
god,
Gucci.
dude!
We're Gucci.
Jesus
We're
Christ,
Gucci. Okay, we're all good. Okay. So
bro.
okay,
What the fuck are they teaching? Yo, what the fuck are they changed in IB, bro?
no, okay. I'm just it's
Bro,
no. Okay,
every
look.
year, bro, they just keep.
Yeah, they make everything more Marxist. I know it's disgusting. Anyway, um, okay, okay,
Oh, I
perfect.
thought they were like it like. Well, I'll say it later. Go on.
Yeah, no, we still teach Keynesian and neoclassical economics. That's like what we learn
Yeah,
basically.
no, I thought there was a huge bias in economics. It was a huge like
Oh
neoclassical
yeah,
bias in
it's insanely
economics.
neoclassical.
Yeah. I thought that was really dumb.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's
I'm not a
it's
Keynesian myself. I'm more of a neoclassical, but it's like the bias was so apparent. Like was so apparent.
yeah, like literally when they talk about like unemployment, they basically just said how to solve unemployment, cut all unemployment benefits, and people want to work. Like
I mean, like ceteris paribus, that's true, but that's not good public policy.
yeah, it's far from a good public policy. Okay. Anyways, perfect. So we agree with that. Then you could also have the. I kind of just want to end the conversation now while we agree on something, and not go into some another big
Okay,
discussion.
it just seems like okay. Listen, I like you. Like you seem like a smart guy.
Thank
You're
you.
not dumb,
I
right?
appreciate
You're
it.
not like an esoteric leftist that only reads like leftist theory.
There we go.
But I just feel like a lot of their disagreements come from like really semantic stuff that at the end of the day, I think we probably agree on a lot of stuff, but we come from different assumptions.
Um, yeah, probably. Okay. All right. Perfect. You know what? We can continue this discussion some other time because it's like late as fuck.
Yeah, dude, I have to wake up in like 7 hours.
Yeah,
Vänta, kan
exactly.
du, alltså talar du svenska?
Ja, jag pratar svenska.
Okej. Nej, för att du sa du bodde i en sån annan land innan.
Nej, alltså jag har bott utomlands hela mitt liv. Jag har bott i Sverige, Danmark, Belgien, Singapore, Spanien och nu bor jag här.
Ja. Nej, för att jag hör från din dialekt, min dialekt är inte bra heller, för att jag bodde i Thailand nästan hela mitt liv, du vet.
Ja.
Men alltså jag tror att jag hör din dialekt, alltså det är inte, du vet, det låter inte skånsk eller stockholmare eller ja.
Ja, precis.
Yeah.
Men okay, great. Let's
Okay,
sure
okay.
that I can
To
understand
end
what
this
we're
conclusion,
Yeah.
right? I like you. I like debating you,
Very cool.
right? I think that we both come out of like a greater appreciation for each other at the end here.
Yeah.
I think that if you want to ever debate again, I
Yes.
would like to.
Yeah.
Let's have like a way more specific discussion. Let's give each other like actual like research time. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay. That's very cool. Yeah, we'll see if we have the discussion. Okay, we can all, you know what, we can close this off on one very good note. Okay, we can both say good, a solid, a with a deep breath beforehand. We can breathe in and we can say fuck SD.
My guy, fuck Esther.
There we go. We're good.
My
Okay.
guy. Bro, you know what? Alright, let's come together. Okay, let's say one more thing.
Go for it.
What one more thing? Alright?
Hit me with it. I'm ready.
Okay. Listen. Fuck Ebba Busch Thor.
True. Get the fuck out of here.
Right, bro? We don't like Cordia in here.
No.
Okay.
Fuck him.
I don't like MP either. Don't like them. They're pretty
fucking
cringe.
elcyklar in Stockholm. Very nice.
What'd you say?
The fucking elcyklar in Stockholm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we want to get that anti-nuclear, anti-GMO shit BTFO'd.
True.
Okay. I like Liberalerna. I like Nyamko Sabuni a lot. I'm sure you like Jonas Sjöstedt a lot.
Yeah, and so I feel like the left fucks up. Left party fucks up in a lot of ways. Okay.
I mean, like more so in. Well, okay, let's have a short discussion. Just really short, 2 minutes. Okay?
No, please.
Yes,
we're
yes,
doing
yes,
so
yes.
well.
The history.
No.
The history of Vänsterpartiet. Okay, listen. What are your opinions on Vänsterpartiet having contact with North Korea?
I think that's cringe as fuck.
Okay, base. You're not a tanky, are you? Okay, wait. What
No,
are you?
I'm so far away from being a tanky. You have no fucking idea. Okay.
What are you?
I like calling myself a progressive. I like moving towards a more what's it called, just economically literate economy. That's probably like honestly, so many problems I feel could be solved if we just like had competency, just an increase in general. We would solve so many fucking problems. It's actually crazy.
Financial competency amongst people. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not just amongst people, but like amongst like government officials and all types of it. Like we need just an increasing fucking
But wouldn't like
competency in general.
but that would, I think, down the line people would vote for more competent politicians.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's just like one of the main things. That's why education is so important to me.
I agree
Yeah, okay,
100%.
perfect. Okay, let's not get any further into education.
Okay.
I generally like the idea of worker cooperatives based on the research I've seen of them and based on the philosophical justifications I've seen for them. I don't think it's a good idea if the state just says tomorrow, Lamau, make everything a co-op. That's probably not going to be good economic policy. But I definitely want to see heavy research into that way of running businesses and way of running an economy. So things like publicly funded research, state subsidies for the creation of those businesses, so we can get a good empirical grounding before we want to move towards making more of our economy or maybe entire industries cooperatively owned. That's probably like the main economic project I'm thinking about right now, is expanding the role of cooperatives in an economy. And then obviously
I think that we can
dealing with
agree.
climate
I
change.
think that cooperatives are pretty good, right?
Okay,
I'd
yeah.
consider myself like a liberal, right? I think that co-ops are pretty good.
Mhm.
I think that even like giving preferential loans to cooperatives seem pretty good.
Yep.
However, I agree with you. I don't think we should convert to co-ops immediately.
Yep.
I think that a lot of what you said is like pretty reasonable.
Okay, very cool. Who's in your profile picture, by the
Okay.
way?
Scott Sumner, he's a monetary economist.
Okay, very cool. All right, well, you know what?
Who's in your profile picture? He kind of looks stupid.
Fuck off. Okay.
I'm joking. Yo, were you the guy that was on Vosh's stream like a few months ago?
Yeah, that was me. I was on there twice. I did the systemic racism document.
Yeah, no wonder it's like really shit. No, I'm joking.
Okay.
I'm joking.
That's
I'm
two.
joking.
That's
I'm
two
joking. I've
deprecating
read through
jokes
it.
in a
It's good.
row.
It's okay.
Unbelievable.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
Unbelievable. From a okay.
Okay, a few recommendations on your like this immigration in Sweden policy document.
Mm-hmm. Wait. With the systemic racism document, what do you think? Do you think that's like?
No, I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
Honestly, like I agree with a lot of it. Right?
Okay.
You have like 17 studies on like discrimination within like labor markets, but
Yeah.
you barely have like fucking anything, like any like studies, anything for like any of the other shit.
Yeah, because
like,
there's so much
links
research
here
on
and there.
discrimination within the labor market, and there is relatively little in the other parts. That's the main reason.
Exactly. I would say, okay, listen, right? It's not your fault, but you should probably try to expand the empirical backing between like the other like policy goals and
Yeah,
claims and
I
stuff.
agree with you. I just think that there needs to exist more research on it. Okay.
Of course.
Yeah, okay, and that's the main reason why it's not there. Okay, perfect. Can we just get a trans rights, and then I gotta call it a stream. It's been fucking 6 hours. This is my
Listen,
longest
bro,
stream.
trans rights, okay? Trans rights, my
Base as
guy.
fuck. All right, goodbye, my guy.
Okay. All right.